so had to be alert for danger from below.
What's your magic malfunction?
Nothing else is finishing something. I just started the show.
Oh.
I'm doing a 10-minute intro, waiting for rain.
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to a Great War special episode about mining and tunneling in the Great War. Because of the static nature of the war on the Western Front, the majority of mining and tunneling done in the war was done there. That front spanned 1,000 kilometers.
Hey, Brother Randy, how's it going, man?
You done send me a link.
Oh, I dropped it in the chat. Let me go back there and put a fresh one in.
Yeah, all right. I'll check the chat.
Okay, man. That'll work.
Randy, how many times have we done this?
Kilometers from the North Sea to the Swiss border and did not drastically change from the fall of 1914 until late in the war. The time that both sides spent in pretty much the same positions meant time to construct complex defenses, and that included complex networks of mines and tunnels. Mining contributed to the shelter and transport of troops, provided cover for supply and communications, and enabled armies to undermine enemy defenses.
RJ, my man, Brother Randy from Wisconsin. How are you?
Good morning.
So does that look intriguing to you so far? You see that tunneling going on in World War I?
No, I just got here. Sorry, but
Okay, well, it just started. It's going to be tying into undermining. The term undermining is how they realized as part of siege warfare was go under the wall and blow it up. And that became super popular once TNT, dynamite, was invented in the late 1800s, 1890s. Whenever you see that before big explosions, it's always that black powder where they knock a hole in it, and sprinkle it out there, and big difference.
yeah, it sounds like it may be effective, but that requires a serious effort to do
Risk.
the undermining.
It really does, and the undermining also. But while I was just waiting for you to hop on, so we're going to get back to that video. I want to preview what we're going to be going over to give you some sort of a heads up. I want to get into contacting life force microscopy. You've seen some of his things because he's a guy that is doing excellent work on the blood, and he just happens to put up some of my videos sometimes. I don't know where he keeps them on here, but I've seen him before, and he's where I get a lot of information about what's happening in the blood today. Here's a Bible verse for you, Randy. John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. Then Jesus did continue, you are my friends if you do what I command you. Here's another one. We're going to be going over this chapter 11 when we have more time, because there's more to it than the wolf shall dwell with the lamb. There's a lot more to it going on here when we get to that. In that day, the root of Jesse, who shall stand as a signal for the peoples, of him shall the nations inquire, and his resting place shall be glorious. In that day, the Lord will extend his hand yet a second time to recover the remnant. So we'll be looking into that, because a lot of people just they try to scandalously act like I didn't know what that Bible verse said until a few years ago or something. So we're going to be covering a lot of stuff, huh, brother?
Yeah, it sounds like, yeah, good.
We're not going to cover chapter 12 because it's like Jacob. It's so small. I'm just kidding. We are going to cover it. But 13 also, because I really want to get to these parts here about the sound of a tumult is on the mountains as of a great multitude, the sound of an uproar of kings of nations gathering together. That's what you call a tease, Randy, because look there's even all of this other stuff that's really cool in Isaiah 13. And we all know what's in Isaiah 14, right? How art thou fallen from heaven, O day star? We're not covering that today. We got this other stuff going on here, laying down your life for others. 1 John 3:16, by this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, those people back then. But we got that second whole chance thing working with us, so that we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. God showed his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. This looked good, pretty interesting. Oh, this is that video I was trying to tell you about the Department of Homeland Security says sowing doubt in government is domestic terrorism. What is the punishment? I watched that last night, but I guess I was one of the only 4 people that got to watch it before. Oh, no more. So if you look for it, Randy, I apologize. It's not there anymore.
Yeah, you need to be quick.
I should have recorded it. I should have recorded it because it was on Scotty Neal Hughes' show, and she had this guy on, and he was the one that was breaking it down and blowing her mind, going like, wait a minute. I like this country. Don't tell me, because she sows a lot of doubt. Let's face it. That's her job, it seems like. So anyway, sorry about that. False alarm. You won't get to watch that video, but I got to see it, and hallelujah. I was so happy.
Hey, good for you.
It looks like 1,200 got to see it on this other one. Maybe it's not shut down.
Didn't disclose that either. So this is so deep.
Hey, this is the one I watched it on. It didn't get shut down.
All right.
I'm glad I saved it. Or maybe because I don't know. Anyway, she was talking about this, blah, blah.
But will it be more than just a PR move to bring attention to the continued influx of illegal migrants across the southern border? We're going to discuss.
I didn't want to hear about the border.
Of false or misleading narratives which sow discord or undermine public trust in U.S. government institutions. Now, DHS warned against threat actors who want to exacerbate societal friction to sow discord and undermine public trust in government institutions to encourage unrest and potentially inspire acts of violence. Now, this bulletin, however, does have an expiration date of June 7th.
I don't know what they're talking about. What does it mean? It expires on June 7th. We'll have to get back to that, Randy. I got this one pulled up here. I don't know what this is. Something I watched, after I ended the show, it was like already 9:30 last night. So I stayed up for about an hour. I guess I watched this. Wonder what it is.
Seeing judge and they're blowing, you just see plumes of step rats come out. And given what we know about the amount of virus that these deer had,
so we have that to look forward to. And if we run out of time, just decide which ones you don't want to talk about, Randy, okay?
Yeah, we have plenty of time.
This was picked up off of Ella's channel, and I was kind of reading as she was reading along, but this sentence and they're like, you know what? I think I'm going to just do a little bit of my own looking up this Overseas Compatriots Central Committee that was established by the Japanese in 1940. So there I go. Hey, Anybody going to rabbit trail it like me? No way, man. Show me a rabbit trail that I won't go like, I got to find it. So anyway, it led to all this other crazy stuff. It's nuts, right?
Yeah, busy times.
Yeah. December 4th, Japanese intelligence and propaganda in the United States. So I just thought it was really nice that the Lord provided, because December 7th was right around the corner. And this confidential thing is, well, we'll get a look at what they were thinking. What a bunch of dumbasses. We really are ruled by idiots. It's all
Yeah, well, they seem to be, plenty optimistic as well with their agenda.
yeah, it's working for them, don't you think?
Even though they get sloppy, most people aren't paying attention.
Oh, look, there's a guy that people think is Walt Disney, man. I watched Walt Disney that whole time he was on TV when I was when I was a boy. You watched him too, and he didn't look like that. Walt Disney didn't look like that. I mean, they probably had, how many Hitlers do you think they had? How many Saddam Husseins did they have? How many Joe Bidens do the conspiracy theorists think they have? And what's with this Nephilim in the background here?
What's he standing on?
I don't know. I mean, he looks pretty proportional to me.
Yeah.
Dang. So anybody recognize anybody else? I don't. I'm sure there's some Asians, there's some Tartarians back there. This must be their.
So is there a date on the photo? But
this is the signing ceremony for the Axis power, the tripartite pact, seated at front left, from left to right. There's Japan's ambassador, Saburo Karusu. And here is, it's not Mussolini yet, and here he didn't show up. This is the foreign affairs minister, Galeazzo Ciano. If you guys thought mafia, that's not because I said mafia. You had already thought about it. I'd like to be this guy. If this guy gets tired, he's just going to put his elbow on his head. And then there's the Fuhrer. It means leader. He's slumping in his chair. There it is. Signed, sealed, and delivered. When you wish upon a star. Got a weird shadow here, huh?
Yeah, if that's what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe you've been wearing a mask.
It's probably subliminal advertisement that he's a clown. There's the Mussolini mugshot. They hung this guy up and burned him and his wife. That was in 1943. He was alive when they took that picture. And there's Hirohito. He thought that they would let him pass for white. You believe that, Randy?
Well, I can believe he might have thought that. Yeah.
Yeah, but when it came right down to it, they said no dice. And then the Japanese said, we'll show you who's white. And it took the world merging together to defeat them. These guys were a joke, man. The Germans. They're too small. They're like Jacob. They got overextended. They lost that war in 1940. 41, it was way over.
Yeah, they bit off more than they were able to chew.
They sure did. So we also have this Central Committee did find something from a China newspaper from 2011. They give a little background on it. I don't know how much of this stuff we're going to get to cover. This is something to do with it. History of the BIS. What's that? It's some sort of spy thing. Where, don't they usually give you something to go with? Do they explain what it is so that you know? It stands for something, I'm sure. The BIS. Now I'm a big dummy because I didn't know it. That's Germany's spy agency, like the OSS or something. Banking operations. This all turned out to be about a robbery anyway. So these guys, they wanted this gold from the banks. So they went and got it. It's a lot of gold. When you talk about gold, that's a lot. Bretton Woods Agreement, we've talked about that, right?
Oh, yeah.
This actually should be Bretton Woods conferences. We'll just add to it. Formerly known as the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference. That's how the mob had their commission. Said, hey, we got to get some financial order around here, man. We can look into that. Chronic wasting disease. Yuck. Señor.
Señor. Señor.
It means Lord. It also means sir. It's a man. It's like father. You can go, oh, Father, hallowed be thy name. And you know who you're talking about. Or you can go, hi, Dad, or that's my father. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Word this word. Here's a good one. Let's see if there's one that I can. El señor has contrato cinco jardineros. There you go. You habla español. Anyway, señor comes from this word. Signor. Lord was the name formally given in France before the reset, the revolution, what led up to the revolution. Everybody knew this word, Lord. They had different ways of saying it because the languages had been changed. And so this is what was in French, Signor, but what did it mean? To the individual or the collective entity which owned a signature, a form of land tenure as a fief. With its associated rights over person and property. A seigneur could be an individual, male or female, noble or non-noble, or a collective entity such a religious community, a monastery, a seminary, a college, a parish. Picking up right here, since the repeal of the feudal system, it says August 4th, 1789, in the wake of the French Revolution, this office has no longer existed and the title has only been used for sovereign princes by their families. So still used in the Ballywork of Guernsey. I don't know. Randy, I'm hoping that you can tie that into some of the scriptures we might run into about, it seems like the extraordinary effort in the book of Nehemiah, and I don't think we're going to have time to get into that today, but how he provides for the servants of Solomon. That's a big deal to me now. I'm getting more interested in that. So I guess after 20 minutes, I should try to get to. So Paco says COVID is real. Prove it, Paco. Okay. Help me. Here we go. Is there Joel chapter 1, verse 4? What the cutting locust left, the swarming locust has eaten. What the swarming locust left, the hopping locust has eaten. And what the hopping locust left, the destroying locust has eaten. Yikes. So anyway, this is done and it's judgment time, past time to start towing the line, walking the walk on the path, the straight and narrow way. Past time, I say. It's judgment with the capital J, and that rhymes with something to do with fire. No, pestilence. And some laws thrown in the mix because no judgment. Oh, some locusts thrown into the mix because no judgment is complete without locusts. All locusts hop, but not all locusts are called hoppers. I think we can all agree with that. I'll go back to the scripture and prove it. We have swarming locusts and hopping locusts and destroying locusts. So, Randy, we got these tunnelers. I didn't get to that. What is this chronic wasting disease? Because
whitetail
wasting disease is sometimes called zombie deer disease. Transmissible spongiform encephalopathy affecting deer. TSEs are a family of diseases thought to be caused by misfolded proteins called prions and include similar diseases such as mad cow disease in humans, scrappy in sheep. In the United States, Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease affects mule deer, white-tailed deer, red deer, sika deer, elk, caribou, and moose. Natural infections causing these diseases affect members of the deer family. Experimental transmissions to other species such as squirrel monkeys and genetically modified mice has been shown. So basically, I'm only saying that although I can't prove it, if they want me to say so that I can preach and talk about other things that we got a virus, Randy. That's all I can say is, but I call it a pestilence, a judgment of God. We're going to get hit with something where people with their weak immune systems, because they don't care about their temple of God, I really think they're going to start dropping like flies. And I think it's probably going to happen this spring or summer, maybe this winter, but this is a pestilence. And I'm not kidding. This is a pestilence. This is a judgment. There's something wrong going on out there, and it doesn't pay to argue about the who, how, why, when this pestilence is among us.
You mean as far as identifying the source?
Right.
Yeah.
We all will have our own idea of what the source is. It can't be any clearer to me I should shut the F up. And I just have to, because as we studied last night, that is there evil in the city and the Lord has not brought it? This is all coming down. This is a judgment, and God uses locusts, pestilence.
Yeah, not everyone perceives judgment as a, good thing, for sure. But yeah,
Yeah, right. And even the people that recognize it's a judgment can't wait till it's over. Because
if the source is from, evil and evil intentions, if that's the Lord's way of,
they've got to be so evil because they're out there cooking and eating children.
Also, they're also doing that, right? Correct.
I mean, and we got to let it all wash over us. It's not like just because we're studying one thing, we've forgotten everything else we already know that the Bible has proven to us. Because what is the Bible if not the good book?
For the Gentiles. It's for the Gentiles.
Yeah, for the whole world, because all the nations, are saved by God. And anyway, the Señor, it leads back to the nobles. These things just ended in my world. And yeah, we got something out there. They want to call it a virus. To me, okay, pestilence, virus / same thing. Something happened that is going to affect people.
Yeah, in a negative way. Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to get involved in the mask argument or anything else. In our part of Texas, nobody wears a mask. I mean, 2 or 3% of the people maybe, and some of the businesses still insist on it. But for the most part,
well, yeah, it's a useless, yeah. As far as you think you have protection, it's useless, but
everybody can have their own opinion. Something is about to start killing people.
Yeah, and it'll be effective. Oh, yeah.
And we can't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me, Randy, what anybody else says about the when, where, and hows of who and the people that are trying to protect us. It is safer to assume the Bible's correct. There's a judgment coming from God, and there is only a very narrow way to escape it. How do we do that? How do we plan for that? How do we get ready for that? What Bible verses should we study in the meantime? And hopefully, in my meantime is going to be in the meantime before I get people to realize they should stop eating Snickers bars.
Well, and it may be a matter of being in the Lord's grace, why, things happen and how they happen or why they don't happen. Go figure.
Oh, so that's how you just you can avoid you can't avoid what's going to happen when people who are plagued start dropping like flies. You're going to avoid that? You're going to avoid the smell of that?
About the only thing you're maybe able to prepare for is the reality.
Right.
Accepting reality.
I know there's a silver lining behind this. And I know that there's going to be a generation of unmillstoned children, because that's what the Bible teaches. It doesn't matter I don't care what your verbology or your phraseology is something has been loosed by God, allowed to be loosed by God, and I don't care where it came from or what term you want to call it. I want to call it plague. Something is about to have people start dying. Now, there's a link right there. You know what Randy did? He clicked that link and boom, he was in the show 6 seconds later. And all you need is a microphone, DD, to come on and tell me that if I want to call it one thing, plague, does it really matter where it came from? We know, we're not pretending we don't have ideas or pretty good ideas that it came from Plum Island.
Well, I'm able to confess it's a true embarrassment for me to see my grandchildren millstoned. But it is what it is.
Right. It's one thing, to me, it's like what you're going to call it is the equivalent of the years we spent, Randy, trying to tell people we're never going to show them a satisfactorily flat earth map. And then they'll shut up and go, oh, okay, you're right. Yeah, you guys are good about flat earth. No, it was just made to argue. What difference does it make? Let me ask this specific question to the people in the chat. Who out there thinks we're not under judgment right now, right this very second? Anybody?
Well, it's a twofold. This is our time of grace, but yeah, what goes on in your lives during that time of grace, affects your life.
Going back to the beginning of the show, and I still was waiting all this time, and I started out, I was going to show this video, Randy, and lead it up to, because I told you we'd start at 11 and I jumped the gun and went a little early. I was going to wait, show that video, you'd log on, and then I'd say, welcome everybody to Flat Earth Nation. Formerly Flat Earth Nation, now Mud Flood was Armageddon. And because it is a Flat Earth Nation, Mud Flood was Armageddon. And don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. And that's what this is all about. And emotions are one thing, as S. Lee reminds us, but nobody is promoting this. Nobody is saying, I believe there's a plague. Stop doing whatever you believe in right now. I'm saying we've got to call. There's going to be, this is a pretty big gray cloud in front of my silver lining, Randy. So I'm going to start the show over with, let's look at proofs that something happened and they were still digging it out as late as World War I. We've gone over the Maginot Line, undermining our mention. Let's start over, get a breath. It's only been 34 minutes as of at the time of the bell. Ding! That's 34 minutes is not enough time to solve this whole debate. This is, one episode out of 5,000 now.
Destroy or compromise them. Early in the war, mining operations were rudimentary and were precursors to an attack. Like in 1914, when the Germans dug shallow tunnels at Givenchy-les-Lavassis and laid 8 50-kilo mines beneath the positions of the Indian Sirhind Brigade. They blew the mines in December, and the following infantry attack took out a company of 800 men. In 1914, the British Expeditionary Force did not have any mining companies, but Major Sir John Norton Griffiths, also an MP, who had once managed a gold mine in the Transvaal, proposed the deployment of civilian miners to the front. See, at that time, he had contracts for digging sewers in Manchester and Liverpool, where the miners used a technique called clay kicking. And he figured this would be really effective in regions where the earth is made up of clay, like in Flanders. Clay kicking used a three-man team composed of a kicker who sat with his back against a wooden support and dug out the clay by kicking a spade-like tool at the rock face. He would pass the spoil to a bagger who would in turn pass it to a trammer who took it out of the mine and brought back supplies. By February 1915, some of Norton Griffith's civilian engineers were already underground in Flanders. The Germans did not know of clay kicking and used mattocks for digging, which was noisier and a lot slower. Clay kicking teams could dig an average of 8 meters per day, the Germans 2. By that month, the British Army...
So I'm comparing that, Randy, to cleaning out the mud floods. By that time, you know, it looks like the English were better at it.
Because they did more of it, or, you know, just...
You know, people are different.
Technique.
Man. You come up with a technique that works, it's hard to get pushed off it unless somebody can say this is better. And maybe the clay did make it, you know, there's differences, but whatever.
But either way, you know, you're talking labor intensive. I mean, there's really no machine, you know, that's going to do the work. It was done by hand or by foot, however you want to describe the technique. But
yeah, and I believe that you know, it is entirely possible, you know, that from whatever in 1711, where I believe the 290 years started, that lasted until September 11th, 2001, you know, these people had started getting these mines working again, and somehow they were better, but it was just big tunneling. This is only a short video. Any comments, Randy?
well, I'm just trying to imagine, you know, what you were describing, and the ones that were shuttling it out and returning with supplies would probably be mainly extending the track, you know, to make it, you know,
well, it also
expedite the removal, you know.
Yeah, that's what you had to do. Whoever could get it out and plant their bombs, undermining them the fastest. It just popped into my mind to tie it into how I'm always stressing that the pioneers are actually a military term, and settlers is actually it. And now this was what they're saying here: 31 tunneling companies, 21,000 tunnelers, and 50,000 infantrymen to support. That's a lot of people that said, this is our army. Now you're in the army, guys. These guys were doing this, and now they're digging tunnels to blow up people. One day you're doing...
And you also have all the other logistics that go along with just some three, you know, short lines there of description of, you know, who's involved.
It was only last
logistics.
night, in hour number 3, that I showed again that the Victorian age of the high collars and the hoop skirts of those people, that, you know, it was a different world. That ended in World War I. That was the end of the Victorian age. That's when all those fiefdoms and everything else ended. This
consolidating kingdoms, yeah.
Not only were these guys good at mining, but they didn't go in the woods, because there really were bad witches, giants, and they would put you in an oven and eat you like Hansel and Gretel, because they're still doing it today. But stay off the main roads, keep your nose down, and work all day at the Blue Sky mine and just feed your family for centuries until you say, oh, here, take this cell phone. It will help keep you safe.
Sell your soul to the company's store?
But you got to dig it out. More digging. We're just laying foundations here.
Projects on the Western Front. Both sides soon developed countermining techniques. Initially, this was simple listening devices like filling oil drums with water and checking for vibrations, or putting a stick into the ground and gripping it with your teeth to check for them. But this became more complex as well. Stethoscopes and eventually geophones were used that could detect noises in the ground up to 50 meters away. The geophone actually developed to the point where just 2 listeners could man 3 dozen sensors over a large area and even determine the direction the enemy was moving. Opposing tunnels, as you may guess, would sometimes converge, leading to underground skirmishes. Rifles were impractical underground, so miners fought with their tools or improvised weapons. But if you detected an enemy tunnel, you really wanted to disrupt or destroy it without giving away your own positions. Camouflages, small pre-prepared explosive charges, were directed in the direction of enemy mining to either cause cave-ins or cracks in the area, making further progress perilous or impossible. Okay, it was pretty perilous in general. The miners worked 6 to 12-hour shifts in cramped conditions, often in water, and were afflicted by the same fatigue, trench foot, and illnesses as the surface soldiers, but also had to contend with cave-ins, entombment, gas, asphyxiation, drowning, and so forth. They did get paid 6 shillings a day, which was around 6 times as much as a frontline private, and this caused some animosity between the two. It didn't help that soldiers in the trenches were exposed to additional dangers themselves when mining and countermining was going on below them. And if the enemy located your tunnels, that meant extra artillery shelling on the men above. Other than just blowing up enemy positions, mines could be used to throw up bridges to screen positions, provide cover, or stun the enemy just before an advance. At the Somme, the British dug 32 kilometers before the battle there. The largest work.
32 kilometers. That's like 20 miles.
That's very ambitious.
A gallery 17 meters below the surface, filled with 18.4 tons of explosives. This was blown 10 minutes before the 0-hour assault.
That's called the Loganagar crater.
And was supposed to disrupt the German positions and allow the British to consolidate good positions at the crest of the blast crater. But instead, it prompted a German counter barrage and alerted the Germans to the impending attack. At Arras, there was intense mining, with the British, French, and Germans blowing 150 charges on a 7-kilometer front between October 1915 and April 1917. One reason for the heavy activity there was that, unlike Belgium, the ground under Arras is made of chalk, which is relatively easy to dig through, but is also stable and easy to support. Since that sector was pretty quiet the first half of the war, the Germans had built an extensive mining network there. When the British took over the sector of front opposite them, they immediately brought in 7 tunneling companies, and by 1917, a lot of the front was defined by 19 crater groups separating the enemy positions. By April 1917, when the Battle of Arras began,
you know what, Randy? I really think that we can find things like that in the mountains still, just ready to flip the switch and let her run. There's things out there right now that, you know, what they call abandoned. Just search abandoned hotels, abandoned castles. You'll be surprised by what you find.
Sitting idle.
Yeah, they're just sitting there. I mean, we might have to do a little tunneling ourselves, or someone will. But yeah, what I'm saying is we're not going to beat these guys. We're not going to defeat God's judgment. We're not going to stop it. You know, hope you guys find that, you know, I find this interesting that worldwide tunneling, clean the mud out, has always been the deal, you know. I knew that this might be a little provocative, the title, Randy, but I'm still not, you know, I'm still not trying to, you know, I just want to provoke discussion. We have to call it something. You know, should we just look up, you know, the word pestilence in the Bible? But this is all pretty new. 1967 was when CWD, that's one of the like mad cow things, was identified, the clinical wasting syndrome. Syndrome associated with an underlying illness causing ongoing muscle loss that is not entirely reversed with nutritional supplementation. A range of diseases, most commonly cancer, cachexia, heart disease, pulmonary disease, myocarditis much? But don't worry, these guys are on it.
Or the cause of it.
These are very important aspects of keeping your body pure. I can't stress enough how important it is to treat your body like a holy, holy thing that, remember 80% of the things with RNA, DNA that are living inside you that have their own DNA, raise their families, are not you that you look in the mirror. Those are the organisms that live inside you. How healthy you live is how healthy their whole kingdoms are. Think about that. But don't lose sight of the fact that this is not the Kabbalah, where some mystic Jesus, is involved in everything. No, Jesus Christ walked the earth, bled and died in real time. And that by his blood, our sins are washed away. Without it, what do we have?
There's no plan B.
There's no plan B. I think of the abortion drug called Plan B.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
I remember lining up, Randy, in school, just like you probably do too. And hey, we're getting vaccinations that day. Okay, my parents didn't sign anything, do anything. I remember the first time taking a drink of a vaccine. It was the Jonas Salk polio vaccine. I was at Hume School in 5th grade. There was 3 schools that had been combined, 3 single schools, and now they were in one group. And it was kindergarten through 3rd grade in one room, 4th, 5th, and 6th in one room. So my 4th grade sister sat next to me because I was in 5th grade. And then they had a separate room for 7th and 8th grade. And my parents didn't sign anything. It was just, vaccines today, doop, doop, doop. We're done in 20 minutes and right back at it. So school was good.
Just doing what you're told.
Yep. But it was also in one of those small farm schools that there was a teacher that the first time I heard that Peter's shadow could heal people was where, once a week our teacher would read the Bible to us. And, I still remember that. So this wasting disease is a plague that's coming, whether we want it or not. I mean, no matter what we want to call it. Wow, it's what's happening, man. And there, a lot of this, I like these paywall things, man.
New at 6, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department is issuing new regulations during deer hunting season after a deer in Valverde County tested positive for chronic wasting disease. The illness spreads easily among deer and slowly kills them. Eyewitness News reporter Mariah Medina has more about what official.
More deer in Tennessee and Mississippi are testing positive for what some call the zombie disease. Chronic wasting disease found in Hardeman, McNairy, and Fayette County in deer in Tennessee. It's also been detected in Pontotoc, Panola, Tallahatchie, and Marshall counties in Mississippi. Local 24 News reporter Tish Clark is live in the studio now with tonight's local safety alert. So Tish, are people at any risk?
Okay, Richard, so far so good. There is not a known case where the disease has passed from deer to people. However, wildlife officials urge hunters to have their deer meat tested. It's too late to do that after the meat has been processed. Chronic wasting disease affects a deer's brain, spinal cord, and bones. They'll be thin, confused, and foam at the mouth, which is why it's also referred to as the zombie disease. They eventually die. The disease has never been detected in people who may have eaten contaminated.
Look at that thing. Damn, John. Shoot him, John. Shoot him, John. Son of a bitch is about to run over. Woo. Oh, shoot him, John. Damn.
We don't know exactly how CWD is transmitted to new areas, and one of the concerns is that if the bones and scraps of CWD infected animals containing neurologic and lymphatic tissue are haphazardly dumped in the environment, it could possibly introduce the disease into a new area. The result is there are a growing number of states that have adopted some form of carcass transportation regulations which prohibit hunters from transporting whole deer and elk carcasses into their states. In many areas, carcass transportation regulations prevent the transportation of the head, but allow the antlers still attached to a clean skull cap. We have to make an exception to our rule about cutting into the cranium in order to remove the antlers attached to the skull cap. Use rubber or latex gloves and a saw that is used only for this purpose.
Yeah, that'll work. So what are we going to do, Randy? You think it's time to just look up some Bible verses about pestilence?
Yeah, anytime's fine. Yeah, when you feel the switch gear. But that's been a big deal, around where I live for quite a while.
Right. You were right there on the map. Let's see, we'll just start at the top. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. So we want to make sure we're dwelling in that shelter. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust, for he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions. I have done a whole show on that word. And under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and buckler. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day. Any comments, Randy?
Yeah, I like the sounds of that.
Here's the second one. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilences. Well, if the food is all dying too, it must have been rough. And there will be terrors and great signs from heaven. 2 Chronicles 7, and the good advice of verse 14, which is always easy to remember because 2 Chronicles is 2 times 7 is 14. When I shut up the heavens so that there is no rain, or command the locusts to devour the land, or send pestilence among the people, if my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and heal their land. Might be a little late for that this time. Ezekiel 5:7, pestilence and blood will pass through you. 1 Kings 8, verse 37, there is pestilence or blight or mildew or locust or caterpillar, famines and earthquakes in various places, famines and with pestilence, and by wild beasts of the earth. But I'm not saying it says, before him went pestilence and plague followed at his heels. But it also, for he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. I believe that also. I know there'll be a remnant. I know there will be a tribe encompassed about. There has to be. We're one-trick ponies here, Randy. I am anyway. I'm trying to show them that in chapter 19, the second part of verse 20, it says, these two were thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur. And it's talking about the beast and the false prophet. Because in verse 20 starts, and the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet, who in its presence had done the signs by which he deceived those who had received the mark of the beast and those who worshiped the image. These were the people that got raptured, that blessed first resurrection. And those two were thrown alive into a lake of fire. But we also know in chapter 20, that's not the Satan's, fate, not yet. There was a 1,000-year period, because it says it continued. Verse 2, and he seized the dragon. This is at, approximately the same time that it took an angel to show up and said, not yet you in the fire, you in the bottomless pit. So he seized the dragon to make sure they know who you're talking about. They had the ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan. Nowhere else in the Bible do you see 4 times. Repetition, yes. And one time we see holy, holy, holy. But 4 times, who are they talking about? And they bound that Satan 1,000
Make no
years.
mistake in the identity.
We're talking about Satan. And they
Yeah,
bound
make
him
no
for
mistake.
1,000 years.
Yeah.
But then he was going to be released. And that's,
After
that's
1,000 years.
And I say that's happening to us. Other people can say, no, it's going to happen later. But they can't say there is a time between the rapture and that blessed first resurrection and 1,000 years, and then what they call a little while. And then after that 1,000 years, when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released and will come out to deceive the nations that are at the 4 corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle, for their number is like the sand of the sea. And so these Gog and Magogians, and Satan at their head, is going to come with another attack after Armageddon. In chapter 19, there can be no mistake about what happened when the beast and the false prophet were defeated by the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And then in 1,000 years, and plus that short time later compared to history, there's going to be a time where he's going to gather them up. After that 1,000-year sentence, he's released, got everybody to believe they're in a nation, and he's going to march up over the broad plain of the earth and surround the camp of the saints. That word is the people who believe like we do. We trust in the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and his cleansing blood. And they are going to be in a place called a beloved city. Could be a state of mind in multiple places. But fire came down from heaven and consumed them. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were and have been for 1,000 years. And then he joins them to be tormented And then we have the great white throne of judgment. All I'm saying is, if you take it back to Daniel, for me, it's not a leap of faith to tie it in that there was a time when, after the angel revealed it to Daniel, he said, no, it's sealed. In verse 9, Daniel chapter 12, the angel said to Daniel, go your way, Daniel, for the words are shut up and sealed until the time of the end. Many shall purify themselves and make themselves white and be refined, but the wicked shall act wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but those who are wise shall understand. And from the time that the regular burnt offering is taken away, and the abomination of desolation, the abomination that makes desolate, because the burnt offering is taken away, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he who waits and arrives at the 1,335 days. But as for Daniel, go your way, and you shall rest and shall stand in your allotted place at the end of days.
So you have identified the enemy as well as the remedy.
I believe
Christ is the cure.
Amen. And he always has been. And he always has been. So once again, I guess, is that
Nothing new under the sun.
nope. If anybody wants to come on and if they have any questions, just hit that link, because we're not trying to break new ground. We're just trying to say the same thing that we were saying before any lockdowns or anything else. We used to be able to convince people that there was an imminent destruction of our economy. But in the last 2 years, all the stock market has done is peace, grow stock market. Everything's fine. There's some people out there, I guess, making a lot of money.
Well, I lost a little over $35,000 in the last month. I know that with mine, but they evaporated as quick as they put it in there. So
What they say,
it's a seesaw ride.
Easy come, easy go. That I'd say,
yeah. What can I do about it?
Well, what we've actually proved is $2.3 billion is to Mark Zuckerberg what $35,000 is to you. That's a pretty big difference. That's statistically nothing.
Well, I sent you that link about, was it that other guy's yacht in the rotten eggs? Did you even open that up? Or
no, that must be new.
Well, I sent it a couple days ago, but
I don't know how. Yeah, I must not have seen it because we were going through your videos last night.
But they were taking down that bridge to dismantle that bridge that's been there for 150 years plus. And
we did watch that, but we didn't watch the whole thing.
Well, yeah. Well, it was more of it was just text, and there might have been some photographs. It wasn't a video. It was, but that bozo he's got a yacht 400 and some feet long. It's over $1 million per foot. And then to get it out to sea, this bridge that's been there for a long time needs to be dismantled to get it from the shipyard where it was manufactured out to open water.
Okay, if anybody wants to go back and see this video, you have only one more day to watch it.
But the people that live there pledged to throw rotten eggs at this yacht as it moves past that area where this bridge is being dismantled. That was the article. Yeah. That's the Yeah, the Blade. Yeah, it was a short article, and I have no idea how long this yacht has been under construction. You know, and I'm thinking it's probably well equipped. That's the bridge that requires to be dismantled to get this yacht into open water.
That's Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, bozos.
He looks like that guy that's from the Star Trek. He's their captain.
But and that, yeah, I didn't want to get you distracted, but I just thought it was a cute short article. And
417 foot long, $500 million.
Yeah, it's more than $1 million per foot.
Wow.
So yeah, maybe it's impressive to some.
Got some other from Laura I'm going to have to read. U.S. Farm Security Administration to document the Great Depression, more than a third were killed. Yikes.
Yeah, that's significant.
That's very biblically significant. Yeah, this guy is weird. Perenzi, I think that's how you pronounce it. Piranesi.
Yeah, and you didn't catch that decoding that engraving.
No.
Okay, yeah, because that was that one that Michelle Gibson mirrored today.
Oh, okay. No, I unless somebody specifically tells me she's done something original that hasn't been channeled from an evil spirit, I pretty much don't watch it.
No, I think this one that she mirrored was done well enough. Yeah, it was a fresh one today, but
I remember talking to her when she had just over 1,000 subscribers, and she thought I could help her show because we had like 7,000 at the time.
Yeah, I told you I made it.
Yeah, she was all about what the Bible and everything else and all blah blah.
Yeah, I left her a comment on that one where she went flat Earth, and then and reminded her about what you just described. But yeah, probably a third of the way in, it gets quite detailed.
Starforts in Copenhagen.
What does it get going at about that time?
I'd say, I mean, it's all good, but I say to skip like a third of it. You skip the first third, and then it gets really detailed into this engraving. Up until then, she's describing why, it's all pertinent information, and this character that did right here, she's talking about how they changed some of the triangular points on that star fort where this castle is, where the main throughway into that body of water.
The bastions were improved at that time, you mean?
Yeah, the angles were changed, and
Changing
she
the
claims it's
frequency, changing the pitch, changing the
yeah,
vibration. I
but
get it. I get it.
but it was her theory is because it had something to do with the spires, to make it more good or something.
That's what I would have done. I would have changed those spires. I would have aspired to changing the spires to make people admire and desire to emulate my love for the Lord.
And but when she gets into this engraving and all the detailing in this engraving was quite good, I felt.
I can't find my lighter.
Can't be too far away.
Nope, there it is. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because something changed, something all changed, because I just hate to admit how confused they keep me with this Julian and Gregorian calendar. And then those Jewish calendars and Maya calendars. Trying to keep a running track of all these calendars just drives me crazy.
Well, yeah. Keeps you wondering.
That's a good picture. Look at that. Different angles.
Yeah, I think it's done well enough.
Yeah.
And see here she's describing, the points to bisect them and where,
Yeah. Do they all still meet in the center, I wonder? Because they went to
it's to them spires. They all go to this.
Right.
See, that's the way
there's one from middle to middle, and it just missed the fountain in the middle. I was wondering.
But that's the old one. I think the old layout versus the new layout. She just did a comparison.
Oh. I always like to see that there's a picture that the reason.
And this is the one. This is the one she decodes. This engraving, and that guy was responsible for it.
Right.
But it's got a lot of that explanation that, the average person isn't gonna, observe all them details, and then you have to get, draw the lines and connect the dots, and then it makes sense. At least the way she explained it.
There was one, they have this one in Washington that there is I've shown the picture before. It always fascinates me. They had to move the Washington Monument because there was one that now they show there's an obelisk buried under it. The new Washington Monument. If I can't find it, I'm going to give up on this fast. This is not it. But anyway, it's buried right by it, and they would have to adjust it. And it looks like it's a little manhole cover or something. But I don't know the name of it, so. But yeah, that's interesting.
The large face of this truncated triangular trapezohedron. I want to thank my friend and fellow Baconian researcher, Daniel Spino, for showing me this 50.
See, she's researching she's a believer in the whole Shakespeare's going to deliver them the code.
Well, the thing is, here she points out that lady's holding the compass. And she does the angles on this, and if you would squash this down, then point down here in the bottom becomes a 90-degree triangle. You know, and then she does some other connecting of like from the middle of the sphere on the floor up to I think that goes up to the top of the compass, but then continues on in this block work where everything you added either way is 34, all directions. It passes was it 35? Was no 15 and 8 and 7, you know, because 8 and 7 is 15, you know, it there the way she decodes this, yeah, there's a lot. That's a really busy engraving.
Called Melancholia. Dürer was a well-known artist and engraver of the 14 and 1500s. The shape that's depicted here is called a Dürer solid, similar to a Platonic solid because its vertices all intersect the potential boundary of an encircling sphere. My partner Alan literally plays with solids like these. He's a 4-time world champion in the sport of footbag, and oddly enough, he spent a lot of time in Copenhagen kicking in front of a 13th century church you can see on the left, which likely was putting off a fair amount of tangible energy. As he was traveling throughout Europe and the world, promoting and demonstrating the sport, he would stitch footbags to earn money. He used his interest in geometry to design bags that would perform in certain ways, for stalling, the net game, etc. The prerequisite, though, was that any geometrical design had to form a symmetrical spherical shape. The original design of the Hacky Sack brand was similar to a softball, but Alan experimented with many different designs in which he used straight lines and angles in the form of triangles, squares, pentagons and hexagons, even octagons, to form a sphere. This is the concept behind a Platonic solid, firm shapes that will form a sphere-like shape in which only the vertices intersect the sphere itself. Alan is also a woodworker and constructs solids like this one he made into a lamp. But when using something pliable like fabric, the entire construct can conform to the shape of the sphere. Alan is sort of a savant when it comes to these spherical constructs, and can tell you how many of each polygon a sphere contains simply by looking at it. A typical soccer ball is made up of 20 hexagons and 12 pentagons. But Al's more complicated designs involve bags like this.
And of course, there was a time when Casey from Enter the Stars and myself were really fascinated that, you know, this is the for sulfur and soccer balls prevalence in modern movies. But if you look up, let's just see it here. Well, they're not showing it as well as I would have hoped, but it looks just like that when you see it. It's a soccer ball.
But each one is stitched the same way.
Yeah. It's this part where the sulfur attaches to it. But anyway, that's how it works too. It binds it on you see the pentagonal shape or the
pentagon and hexagon.
actually it's a heptagon or something. There's 6 sides.
Yep.
But it is interesting because here it shows 5.
Yeah, the pentagon, and them are all equal length.
Yeah, this is 6. Here's the pentagon right here. 1.
But
5.
the hexagon isn't equal sides.
Right.
You got a longer 3-side and a shorter 3-side.
And here's your 6 one is this panel where it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yep.
So there is a connection.
Pentagons. But Al's more complicated designs involve bags like this. And this one, a 452 panel design. Alan has designed and stitched countless spheres made up of straight lines and angles, a geometrical combination the Freemasons held in specific high regard, symbolized by their depicting the square and compass together. Which brings us back to Durer's engraving, in which a winged woman sits next to a geometrical stone. She's holding a compass prominently, while many other discarded tools lay at her feet. This engraving almost feels Masonic, but it's missing a square to go along with the compass. Let's take a closer look at the Durer solid. Its largest face is really just an elongated pentagon. The viewer's perspective from the side distorts it, so I've approximated its true shape based on the lengths and angles in Durer's engraving. The angles of this elongated pentagon are 64, 114, and 124. These don't seem to fit any pattern we've seen so far. We can, however, flatten this pentagon into a triangle, retaining each of the side lengths, and this does fit a pattern we've seen before. A Masonic pattern. We see that this woman is holding a compass, a Masonic symbol, but in all of these scattered tools lying at her feet, there's no corresponding square to go along with the compass. That's because the square is actually hidden in the elongated pentagon that can transmute into a right triangle. Is the year 1514 a little early to be encoding Masonic symbols?
Yes.
Not really. German Masonic lodges were very active in the 14 and 1500s. So what other clues are hidden in this Durer engraving?
Tears in the wheat.
The winged woman has 5 keys. Because she's holding a compass, we might surmise that the 5 keys in the engraving are likely to be round. And sure enough, there are 5 relevant round orbs to be found. The O in melancholia, the sun, the sphere, the circular purse clasp, and a round nub on the largest key. We can draw lines from these orbs to various eyes. First, we'll draw a line from the letter O to the little eye hole in the piece of wood at the bottom of the engraving. Another line can be drawn from the round purse clasp up to the eye of the cherub.
This is how as she referred to herself earlier, Baconian is what she is. It spelled it B-O, but it was a Baconian for Francis Bacon. And they use a lot of these Durer and other things to prove that this was all a great plan, and Shakespeare was the culmination, to use the King James Bible to teach us that the pyramids were made in the pattern of Orion, and that means that they're coming back from the dog star Sirius. Bang. That's the summation, but here we go.
It dissects the compass in its exact center, or mise. And this line is exactly parallel to the first. If we draw a line from the center of the sphere through the eye of the dog, we end up at the pivot point of the compass. Next, we can draw a line from the purse clasp to the round key nub. This line is also exactly parallel to the line between the sphere and compass. Notice that the line from the purse to the key forms a 64-degree angle, which is identical to the angle of the tip of the elongated pentagon. And because the two lines involved are parallel, that means we also have a pair of 64-degree angles here. If we continue the line from the sphere up to the woman's face, we arrive at the woman's forehead, her third eye. This generates another pair of 64-degree angles here. If we now draw a line through these two vertices of the polyhedron, we arrive again at the woman's third eye, which is a spot confirmed a third time by extending the line up to the sun at 34 degrees.
Hey, Brother Randy?
You.
What's up with this hammer? Seems out of place to me when people were still using wood pegs in Pennsylvania till the 1780s.
Yeah, well, you may be right, but there it is.
Yeah, well, I want this guy to stop putting hammers into his engravings because it just bugging me.
And why is 34 degrees important? Durer placed a magic square above the woman's head in which...
Wow.
Everything adds up to 34. But she'll continue that line. But
yeah, watch out for that. You see, ephods, Aaron only had 12.
But yeah, it's a busy engraving.
Row of numbers adds up to 34. And if we extend the line from the sphere through the woman's third eye, the line enters the magic square in the box containing the number 15. Then touches on the numbers 7 and 8, which add up to 15. So what's the significance of all these parallel lines and specific angles? In my research involving the harmonic series, these angle values can correlate to positions in the series and to the notes of B, C, and C sharp. The 64-degree angles of the polyhedron and parallel lines are all highlighting the note of C. If we then mark the next few octaves of C on the grid, we end up at 16. The number 34 halves to harmonic 17, the note of C sharp. And the number 15, or the 15th harmonic, corresponds to the note of B. These three notes sit next to one another, the prominent note of C flanked by its neighboring note on either side. I discuss in my book, The Next Octave, that C and the first harmonic represent the power of two in the matter-based world.
Man, what is he trying to pull on me, man? Hey, you see that math? I learned that in 2016 from this guy.
The power of two?
The base 9 math.
Oh. Well, yeah, that's like a Tesla thing, isn't it?
Mathematics or numbers is the cradle of all creations. Without this, the world cannot move even an inch. Every human being, whether nurse or a farmer, a carpenter, a mechanic, a shopkeeper or a doctor, an engineer or a scientist, a musician or a magician, an electrician or a fisherman, a cook or a driver, everyone needs mathematics in their day-to-day life. Even animals, plants, and insects has the golden ratio, the geometrical pattern. They use mathematics in their everyday life for existence. But did you know that you can find the secret of the universe by just using mathematics? I want to start with a very basic concept, the vortex-based mathematics, from the root word vortex. Vortex is a region in a fluid in which the flow rotates around an axis line, which may be straight or curved. You can see the vortex pattern in all, like in your blood, nature, and even in the universe. Marco Rodin, his original claim was he had tapped into, and he can model mathematically, a previously unobserved invisible energy. It is the initial impulse positive force behind creation. This energy is characterized by its linearity. In vortex math, everything adds to 9, 6, and 3. Polarized everything in 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, and 5 describe the physical world. Therefore, the 3, 6, and 9 are not physical, but govern the physical world at the quantum level. The example is sound. Sound release frequencies or vibration. Understanding that all living things are vibration, meaning it is the control and standard upon which all creation is based. Here is the example of symbol. I know something.
Everybody recognize that.
Yep.
Marco himself refers to it as a symbol of enlightenment. I know something.
No, see the difference between Marco and myself. Marco went with the Baha'i faith. I remain a staunch, diehard Christian.
Societies have deep knowledge about this. They use the geometrical pattern to govern the world. This is the mathematical encryption of the universe around the circle.
And plus, Marco is crazy.
That makes a difference.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. What I am going to show you here, if you add those numbers back together, reveals an underlying pattern or infinite series. You can need any bigger number that you can find, like in nature. Nature is pattern. This is the way you can create all the pattern, and you can model a higher dimensional energy. We're going into clockwise direction around the circle. Let's start with 1. We draw a straight line connecting to the next number, which is 2. This is called doubling. 1 if it's doubled is equals to 2. 2 if it's doubled, and we follow the line again, it becomes 4. 4 if we double again, it becomes 8. 8 is doubled again, it becomes 16. If we add 1 and 6 together, we get 7. Let's just follow the underlying pattern. So, 16 doubled is 32. Then again, 3 plus 2 equals 5. We can also double the 7. 7 plus 7 equals 14. 1 plus 4 is going to be 5. Let's stick and go back to 32. So 32 doubled is 64. Bring me back up here into 1. 6 plus 4 equals 10. 1 plus 0 equals 1. 64 doubled is 128. 8 plus 2 is 10. 10 plus 1 is 11. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 128 is doubled is 256. Again, 2 plus 5 equals 7. 7 plus 6 equals 13. Then 1 plus 3 is 4. By continuing, 256 doubled is 512. Again, reducing back to 8. 512 doubled is 1024. Reduces back to 7. 1024 doubled is 2048, which reduces back to 5. No matter how many times you go around, there's no possible way to break this infinity sequence. It always goes back to start and no ending. All the numbers are equally important, but the 9 is really the king or the queen of the system. It is the control of everything else. So what happened if you double the 9? 9 doubled becomes 18. 18 doubled is 36. 36 doubled is 72. So if you add those numbers, 18, 36, and 72, they always equal to 9. What about if I half 9? Half 9 is about 4.5, which is equals 9. Half to 4.5 is 2.25, which also equals 9. No matter what I doubled or half it, the 9 is never changing. It's forming an axis and polarizing all the numbers. Because in this system, we are actually able to give polarity. Look at those 6 and 3. Let's find out what happens with these numbers if we get into mathematical functions. 3 doubled becomes 6. 6 doubled then becomes 12. And 1 plus 2 is 3. 12 doubled becomes 24. 2 plus 4 is 6. 24 doubled is 48. 4 plus 8 is 12. 1 plus 2 is 3. 48 doubled is 96, which comes back to 6, right? Halving would be the same. Half of 6 is 3. Half of 3 is 1.5, which comes back to 6. No matter which way you do, halving or doubling, 3 and 6 are oscillating back and forth. None of those numbers can do this. Only 3 and 6, just like magnetic fields or duality. You might ask me, why is that significant? Well, because this is how vibration and motion occurs. Energy always moves and can't be destroyed. This is why universe always moving, but it's never actually going anywhere. Number 9 is the highest energy because it is the answer or source of all motion and all vibration. Please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe.
There you have it. Fun with numbers.
Yeah. But then sometimes you can end up like poor Marco.
Up and down, know what's going on in the universe. It's a secret of the gyroscope. It's these numbers, this everything. The number 9 is the source of the gyroscope, and everything's spinning around 9. Okay, everybody ready? So I'll explain to you how it works. Now, remember we were going to say that it is a. Okay, so you now see that this is the skin. So these tiles really get bigger and smaller. See how they're longer here and wider out here? But here I had to make them just like a grid cloth to keep it simple. Okay? Otherwise, they would have been getting bigger. Okay? By the way, this key.
See, I dropped out 2 years before this madness. How deep do we need to go? There's other things, tie it into the Bible. There's life, right? You can't just get sucked into numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't just follow distractions. Yeah.
Right. So
there is purpose. There is purpose.
No one can ever keep up with Marco and those things in the math, but we don't need to. It's true. It's all going to be there. All right. So let's move on. Right? Let's move on. So we're vortex batteries. Big deal.
Organic.
Eventually, so you're going to end up on your knees confessing Jesus Christ as Lord. That's the only thing that really matters. If you believe it in your heart, confess with your mouth.
The cure. What matters is the cure.
Right. Because so they're liars, they're liars. And that would have been, you see what the Apostle Paul, they would have accused him. They said, much learning hath made you mad, but not Paul. He stuck with the Lord. He didn't, he knew there were secret things.
And you have two types of liars. You have the ones that, they don't know what they're doing. And then you have the liars that know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're still liars. Right.
I don't think Marco's like that. I don't think he's like that. He is millstone somehow.
Right.
But no, in his mind, I don't think that he has a bad thoughts, But it is that Giza stuff. Everybody else is going to Giza and Atlantis. So that was just a little segue.
So all this geometry in the engraving is to highlight that material world, as opposed to the realm of spirit. This engraving is not about spiritual pursuits. It's about a physical energy, and we know that from its title. Other researchers have pointed out that the word melancholia here is spelled incorrectly, but I suspect something else is going on. I think Durer's title is a combination of two Celtic words, melon, meaning yellow, and coolia, a word etymologically associated with the concept of glowing. Melancholia is a yellow glow, as illustrated by the sun right next to it. The sun or soul would be represented musically by the letter G, central to Masonic symbolism. I believe that Dürer was encoding a reference in this engraving to the concept of glow discharge illumination, something not officially discovered until 1675, but something Masons seem to have understood much earlier. Credit again goes to Daniel Spino for making me aware of the electrical arc, which I also think is being depicted here by Dürer, not only in the engraving itself, but also in the musical notes he's encoded into the 3 highlighted numbers of 64, 34, and 15. And it's these electrical properties that Dürer is connecting to the shape in the polyhedron, the elongated pentagon we see in so many star forts around the world. Mainstream historians have a different explanation for the pointed shapes of these star fort bastions. They argue that the pointed shape was defensive and necessary to eliminate dead zones. But it seems that Dürer would not have agreed with this explanation. We know this because he wrote a treatise on the fortification of cities. Here we see the title page of his essay that features a sheep hung up by the waist, or as the Greeks would call it, hung up by the mezi or mies. In his essay, Dürer recommends only round bastions as efficient fortifications. Nowhere in his work does he ever depict a star-shaped or pointed bastion. I believe this is because pointed bastions had a completely different purpose. All the star-pointed foundations we've seen have aligned with spires, which could have functioned as antennas to harvest ions from the upper atmosphere.
I would add that we can't say that this was the single structure of the star fort. You know, it doesn't show any bastions created here, but this could very well be a redoubt and not the main defensive wall. There's cities inside cities. So we'd have to back up and look at the Kronberg Castle as a part of its whole defensive force, but she's making some pretty good points there. But there were some changes made. That's what I'm taking away. What have you got, Randy?
Well, yeah, there's a reason for everything, and yeah, whether they've nailed it, hard to say, but it gives you something to ponder, maybe.
Yeah, even these are these a pattern of 5 all the time for their chimneys, no matter the size of the house? Does it just work better? I don't know. That's a different pattern, but so I don't know. But I mean, I'm glad I didn't have to build a star fort.
All the star-pointed foundations we've seen have aligned with spires, which could have functioned as antennas to harvest ions from the upper atmosphere. Dürer further confirms this theory in his 1494 watercolor of the Innsbruck Castle courtyard, in which we see antennas and wires on one of the castle's spires. It's also possible that Dürer possessed this knowledge that he may have been gifting to a potential group of Masonic brothers in Germany because of his own heritage, descent.
No, what's going on here? Because, is that a Moor, M-O-O-R? Because it looks like a black dude.
From Eastern European or Tartarian Moors, as is suggested by the presence of a Moor on his coat of arms. And I suspect it was this information passed along by Freemasons to Christian IV that informed the elongation of these bastions to align with the spires of Kronborg Castle. It's quite possible that the elongated bastions allowed both for better alignment and for longer length of the transmission lines. And if you're still not convinced, check out this still shot from drone footage over Kronborg. The side of this elongated bastion isn't the simple brick-lined wall we normally see, but instead we can just make out the presence of some type of mechanical workings, a sight the public.
I can make out the presence of scaffolding. What do you see there, Randy? Anything?
Yeah, nothing that I can identify as serving a particular purpose. I mean,
mechanical, yeah, so you can walk on it and reface these rocks. I don't know if that was a mechanical purpose. I don't know. She's wrapping up.
Was likely never meant to see. I'm grateful for any feedback. Please leave your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching.
That's interesting.
Yeah, to some maybe.
Fairly interesting picture, though. These guys are doing something, right?
Yeah, busy times back then as well as now.
A lot of weird stuff going on here.
Yeah, be interesting. Yeah, how long it took to complete that engraving.
Right. And just the fact that, I mean, when they say an engraving, they usually mean they carved it on wood.
Yeah. It might make it difficult to erase any mistakes. So if you don't get it right the first time, you may need to start over or carve it a little deeper. I don't know.
Right. I'm going to try to do something here. Let's see.
Are you gonna try to split it or something? Or
Yeah, I
for the entertaining effect, then it might do something. It usually does, but whether it means anything.
it's been a while since I did it, as you can tell.
Well, I remember when you did it more frequently at one time, anyhow. Trying to make a ram's head out of it there in the center, or ram's
Well, I was
horns.
just gonna say, I'm trying to line it up so it makes whatever it makes itself.
Yeah.
It's touchy when it's this small.
Did you you said you didn't check out the one from Many Fish, that fresh one?
I did. I went and watched it.
Oh, you did? I thought, for what it's worth.
It's short.
Okay, now you're getting something on that one. A little more.
Right. I hope that saved it. That's not weird.
Okay.
That's lined up pretty good.
Yeah, it is. A fair attempt.
I was hoping to get something out of this side that would look like the fourth ventricle.
Right.
But, and you know, here we do have the little part where it would drip onto your spine. Here's the shelf where the black goo would, you know, drip down. There's a pretty small something going on there with an E and what looks like a C. Could count these and maybe find those in a body part as it would go up the folds of the third and fourth ventricle into your brain. We'd be look for two things that come out like the trees. So I'd have to play with it. It's been a while. I can tell it's not lined up as good as I had hoped. But it is pretty darn close. So, I mean,
it's close.
This is just maybe that both sides of the brain are not symmetrical. You know, they look alike, but they are, you know, the left and right hemisphere are different as night and day.
Yep.
So this one here was weird. I think I see a little weirdness going on in here. But I know that they sent messages in their pictures. I do. They did. Thank you for that diversion.
Yeah, and it's not a message that's for everyone. It's there, but it's those that pick up on the subtleties, and some maybe aren't quite so subtle, but it gives you a different way of looking at what's there.
Let's get your opinion on, we're going to start at Isaiah chapter 11, verse 10. You know how since I've been doing these minor prophets and all the prophets, I just love to go, in that day, so in this day, the root of Jesse, who shall stand as a signal for the peoples, of him shall the nations inquire, and his resting place shall be glorious. In that day, the Lord will extend his hand yet a second time to recover the remnant that remains of his people. When was the first time? Was that, are they counting, when was he recovering his people? Babylon, Armageddon, John the Baptist? I'm open, but in that day, the Lord will extend his hand yet a second time to recover the remnant that remains of his people from Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, Cush, Elam, Shinar, Hamath, and from the coastlands of the sea, everywhere. And it's going to have one common message. He will raise a signal for the nations and will assemble the banished of Israel and gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth.
Beck has a little different translation.
Hit us with Dr. William Beck.
Instead of saying a second time.
Yes. Going back.
Again.
Beck uses again.
And he doesn't say a second time.
Well, it seems like the Lord is merciful. You know, that's
again. but again, what's in the original and what it implies or what it actually says and how it's translated, different translations can give you a slightly different or off flavor, intentionally or otherwise, but hard to say. But like I say, I'm following you and Beck. It's not the same.
Let's look down here. We're going to drop down to verse 14. But they shall swoop down on the shoulder of the Philistines in the west, and together they shall plunder the people of the east. They shall put out their hand against Edom and Moab, and the Amorites shall obey them. Verse 15, and the Lord will utterly destroy the tongue of the sea of Egypt, and will wave his hand over the river with his scorching breath. Strike it into 7 canals, and he will lead people across in sandals. And there will be a highway from Assyria for the remnant that remains of his people, as there was for Israel when they came up from the land of Egypt. Is he protecting the people, the remnant of Assyria, much like he protected the remnant of Israel?
Well, yeah. And later he gets more detailed in.
Right. Well, we got to get we got to check off
Assyria, Egypt, and Israel. But right, correct.
Yeah. So we got to get the backstory before we hit, a little summary here in the lesser known parts of the Isaiah, but people know this part. We'll just start at the beginning. But there will be no gloom for her who was in anguish. In the former time, he brought into contempt the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in the latter time, he has made glorious the way of the sea, the land beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the nations. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness. They're talking about the people in the time of our Lord and Savior. He was that great light, and they were walking in the land of deep darkness. On them the light of Christ has shone. Verse 3, you have multiplied the nation, you have increased its joy. They rejoice before you as with joy at the harvest, as they are glad when they divide the spoil. For the yoke of his burden and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For every boot of the trampling warrior in battle tumult, and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end, on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. The Lord has sent a word against Jacob, and it will fall on Israel, and all of the people will know Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria, who say in pride and in arrogance of heart, the bricks have fallen, but we will build with dressed stones. And they did. The sycamores have been cut down, but we will put cedars in their place. And now that the sequoias are gone, they're calling the cedars of Lebanon something in near foe Israel today. Verse 11, but the Lord raises the adversaries of risen against him and stirs up his enemies. The Syrians on the east and the Philistines on the west devour Israel with open mouth. For all this, his anger has not turned away, and his hand is stretched out still. The people did not turn to him who struck them, nor inquire of the Lord of hosts. So the Lord cut off from Israel head and tail, palm and branch, and reed in one day. The elder and honored man is the head, and the prophet who teaches lies is the tail. For those who guide this people have been leading them astray, and those who are guided by them are swallowed up. Therefore, the Lord does not rejoice over their young men and has no compassion on their fatherless and widows, but for everyone is godless and an evildoer, and every mouth speaks folly. For all this, his anger has not turned away, and his hand is stretched out still. For wickedness burns like fire. It consumes briars and thorns. It kindles thickets of the forest, and they roll upward in a column of smoke. And smoke is the incense to God. Verse 19, though the wrath of the Lord of hosts, through the wrath of the Lord of hosts, the land is scorched, and the people are like fuel for the fire. No one spares another. They slice meat on the right, but are still hungry, and they devour on the left, but are not satisfied. Each devours the flesh of his own arm. Manasseh devours Ephraim. Ephraim devours Manasseh. Together they are against Judah. For all this, his anger has not turned away, and his hand is stretched out. So this is where our Lord, the world our Lord came into. It's bad. It was really bad. Verse 33 in Isaiah 10, behold, the Lord of hosts will lop the broths with terrifying power. The great in height will be brought down, and the lofty will be brought low. He will cut down the thickets of the forest with an axe, and Lebanon will fall by the majestic one. We looked at the rule of the shoot of the stump of Jesse, the branch from his root bearing fruit. Verse 3, and his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. Verse 11, in that day the Lord will extend his hand yet again, a second time, to recover the remnant that remains from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathros, from Cush. In this context, chapter 11, as we're moving along, we're still seeing, very short chapter 12, draw up those waters of salvation, judgment against Babylon. It's continuing. These are going to be happen. Wail, for the day of the Lord is near, the destruction of the Almighty. But we touched on it last night, and it is all leading up to that time when the Lord is going to rule them with a rod of iron. And again, he's going to say in Isaiah 19:19, in that day there will be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar to the Lord at its border. It will be a sign and a witness to the Lord of the hosts. Who is that? Our God. In the land of Egypt, when they cry to the Lord because of oppressors, he, the Lord, will send them a savior and a defender to deliver them. And the Lord will make himself known to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians will know the Lord in that day and worship with sacrifice and offering, and they will make vows to the Lord and perform them. And the Lord will strike Egypt, striking and healing, and they will return to the Lord, and he will listen to their pleas for mercy and heal them, because they're entreating him, and he is that God of mercy. Verse 23, in that day there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, and Assyria will come into Egypt, and Egypt into Assyria, and the Egyptians will worship with the Assyrians. Now the Assyrians are worshiping the God of the Hebrews. Verse 24, in that day, Israel will be the third with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth, whom the Lord of hosts has blessed, saying, blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, mine inheritance. Well, there you go, Randy. What am I trying to get at there? I'm just trying to get at the, it's another Thursday. And here we are preaching, that something's going on, and today the Lord just put it on my heart. We got a plague, pestilence coming that nobody likes what's going down. It interrupted the portraying of the stones as much as, that's what brought us together. So
yeah, it'll be less of a distraction and more of a wake-up call, maybe, when it actually hits the fan. But
so I said I would clean out that small intestines and get ready to present, pretty soon. And you can see it. Fairly heavy, and I don't want to drop it on my new computer.
Good idea. Don't do that. So you just hit it with a power washer, or what have you done with this?
I haven't polished it. I've pre-soaked it in a bucket of muriatic acid.
Oh, okay, you have. Yeah, cleaned it up fairly nice.
Tommy can name all these parts too.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. It was really cool when he was doing it, because he was just going about how in surgery they used to take this part, that part. He was talking about this stuff.
And you found this near where you are currently?
No, this was in Merkel, Texas.
Oh.
But see that red line that runs here?
Yep.
That's part of the skin. Now, some of these people that have bowel obstructions and things, Tommy was explaining how they take this out, the lesser omentum. They join these two so their tummies work again.
So that's a membrane?
This is a small intestines.
No, but that red line, that's a membrane between them? Or...
Well, it's the lesser omentum. This is the greater omentum on the top. And these rocks, that are, my green screen is trying to bleed through sometimes. But these rocks are, probably what Brother Tommy said were probably lymph nodes or something like that.
All right, yep. Yeah, where it looks like small stones.
Yeah, it's crushing my leg. I got to put it down.
Take a break.
Yeah. But see, that green screen, there isn't any green in this stone, but I saw it trying to bleed through. Speaking of math and the subjects, there should be a way, since all of what they call the atomic weight of the elements, they're all very similar, except the precious metals, especially, like gold, platinum, palladium. They all weigh like if you had a rock of gold and a rock of anything else, the gold weighs like 24 times more than the other rock. And silver weighs a lot more, copper weighs a lot more. So with any type of a rock, you should be able to say, well, if it weighs this much and it's this size, if you break it down, it has to have X amount of precious metals in it, because that's the only thing that makes a rock lighter or heavier, is its content of what's in us, what we build up, what makes, how come that sunbeam bread, after they bleached the flour and put sugar in it, had to add those 12 essential vitamins, like iron, because that's what we run on. We are made of that dust of the rocks. Fantastic times. Let's go back over some of the other what we missed earlier today. What does the Bible say about laying down your life? In commentary on 1 John chapter 3, verses 11 through 24, these people said the first verse that shows up today gives a simple message: we should love one another. It's a simple yet important message that John repeatedly brings up in this epistle. He even calls it the message you heard from the beginning. It's nothing new, not to us, and definitely not to the original readers of the letter. What he'll do in the next couple of verses, though, verses 11 through 18, is go through in depth what exactly that looks like, giving us not only specific instructions on what we are to do, but also giving us strong instructions on what not to do. So there it is. That's what the Bible offers you, how to live your life in a better way. We all want that, true confidence in God.
But who exactly is DHS talking about? And what does this mean for the future of freedom of speech? Well, I'm going to bring in Ben Swan, investigative journalist, about this. Ben, this has gone kind of under the radar. Not many people have looked at this. That's why I knew that you and I needed to. I'm curious, as you read this bulletin, what do you think the goal of it is, and who exactly is it going to affect?
Well, yeah, I think it's going to affect anybody out there who, well, according to this bulletin, distrusts the government. And anyone who distrusts their government or shares ideas that might make others distrust their government is considered a terrorist threat. The language is so over the top, Scotty. It's so beyond the pale that you have to sit back and say, oh, there must be something specific that's being pointed to here. You said in the lead up here, right now there is a massive freedom convoy that has shut down Ottawa, Canada. And I believe that right now there is a huge movement to get one started here in the United States. I know that is actually underway right now, and we're going to see it all happen very soon. And I will tell you that if and when that does happen, that will be seen as a huge threat to those who are in power in this country for various reasons. One, because you have obviously Washington, D.C. that would be the target of a shutdown in the streets. Number two, you would have truckers who would be on the roads. Therefore, they're not taking an already strained supply chain set of goods to their stores. Instead, they'll be headed to Washington, D.C. And number three, it brings democracy back to the consent of the governed. And so when you see that this language being used right now, that anyone who is helping to sow discord and a lack of trust in the government as being a terroristic threat that only goes until June, you have to believe there is something about to happen that the government is very afraid of right now, and that these spook agencies like DHS, the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, that they're worried about. What I think they're worried about more than anything is the voice of the people being restored to the people.
Well, and Ben, that's what scares me the most when I read this, and why I think we need to put a spotlight on it, because you look at whether you're talking about social media, whether you're talking about YouTube, whether you're talking about anything on the internet, or even talk that's going on in the churches. I don't care, political parties, both right now, people are questioning what is going on, because a lot of people are very confused by the messaging that's being put out by this administration. You said that you think there's an expiration date on it because it shows something big is about to happen. But I want to know what happens. Is there any sort of punishment? DHS is a very serious, while it is a fear-mongering part of the government, do we know yet what happens to those that DHS feels is in violation?
Well, here's the thing. We don't know. So what we do know about the folks who were there on January 6th, not people who necessarily destroyed property, just people who were around the Capitol. In some cases, people who never even entered the Capitol. We know that law enforcement has arrested those people and held them in solitary confinement. Is that what we're talking about here? Is what we're talking about here is that the forms of the Patriot Act and this new so-called domestic Patriot Act that's being put into practice, even though it hasn't been passed into law, in this country, is that going to be pointed at people, directed at people who are seen to be a terroristic threat? I gotta say, Scotty, I mean, this is scary to say on your show because we're here on national television, but would I be considered a terrorist under this? I mean, I question our government all the time. It's what I do as a journalist. I believe that my job requires me to question those who are in power. And in many cases, I distrust, not because they're a Democrat or they're a Republican, but because they have power. And I distrust people who have power to do the right thing with it. That's what journalists are supposed to do in holding people who are in power accountable. So if that is the case, under this very loose, very vague definition, would I be considered a terrorist by the Department of Homeland Security? And if the answer to that question is yes, the next question to what you just asked.
Allow me to interrupt.
What is the consequence of
Please
that?
do. Please do. Yeah, because this
Well,
is another 5 minutes.
It sounds like as though it's directly contrary to Reagan's quote about the government.
Yeah, right.
If you recall, you know.
So you don't think that we should wait for the government to work this out for us?
Well, what's changed since what Reagan, you know, and others have warned? But
Right.
and I'm not saying you could trust, you know, Reagan's administration either.
Well, of course not. I mean,
you know, there's no transparency, and there hasn't been.
Yeah, it was Eisenhower who warned us about the military-industrial complex, and he was a big-time stockholder in it, and he's the one who, with the CIA, was on the board of the United Fruit Company that made the banana republics. So, you know, but the Bible does say what? The people that sat on the seat of the bench of Moses do what they said, not what they do. They tell us the truth. They tell us the right thing to do. They just don't do it.
You know, and you know, Jesus, even though we're encouraged to pray for our leaders, even Jesus didn't pray for the world. He prayed for those that the Father, you know, that were in the Father's hand, you know, that were called, drawn, you know. So when it comes to prayer, and most people have a tendency to be selective, you know, who they're praying for, other than maybe just themselves, but for anyone else, and why and what their intentions are, you know. But yeah, deliver us from the evil one, certainly.
So let's look at that. John 17, verse 1, when Jesus had spoken these words, he lifted up his eyes to heaven and said, Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that the Son may glorify you, since you have given him authority over all flesh to give eternal life to all whom you have given him. And this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. I glorified you on earth, having accomplished the work that you gave me to do. And now, Father, glorify me in your own presence with the glory that I had with you before the world existed. I have manifested your name to the people whom you gave me out of the world. Yours they were, and you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. Now they know that everything that you have given me is from you, for I have given them the words that you gave me, and they have received them and have come to know in truth that I came from you, and they have believed that you sent me. And I am praying for them. I am not praying for the world, but for those whom you have given me, for they are yours. All mine are yours, and yours are mine, and I am glorified in them. I am no longer in the world, but they are in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, keep them in your name, which you have given to me, that they may be one, even as we are one. While I was with them, I kept them in your name, which you had given me. I have guarded them, and not one of them has been lost, except the son of destruction, that the scripture might be fulfilled. Verse 15. I do not ask that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. As you have sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. And for their sake, I consecrate myself, that they also might be consecrated. Brother Randy, anything you want to add to that?
I think it says it all, right? That's Jesus praying, for those the Father had drawn to him. And yeah, he wasn't praying for, the evil, those that are hell bent on doing evil. Jesus certainly is not praying for them. And that represents a lot who are in this world still today. There was a time when after you had sown the seed, it was good seed. There was nothing wrong with that seed. But yeah, as the tares grew in the wheat, yeah, welcome to today. It's the Today Show.
No kidding, man. And we're right on it. We got the days, the times, the situation. What was that one video we were just watching?
Well, that where I interrupted and you then, well, that was the one about that interview. That interview with, that passing of that whatever it is expires in June, but yeah, this is the one, yeah, right there. Yeah, I kind of, like I said, I was going to interrupt, and I did.
That's not it.
Yeah, I think
that's about the white-tailed deer.
Oh no, it's that interview with that guy, that chick, and that guy,
right.
And they're talking about that if that was a temporary patriotic.
Now I can't find it.
But the way you got to it, the first one was deleted or no longer available, and you got to it through something that was still available. That interview from, wasn't it last night or yesterday sometime?
Yeah, but we already know. So they're out to get us, man. They got this whole thing planned where they're going to do us in.
But that has an expiration date, the way it sounded.
It sounds like they're planning for something.
Yeah, anyone that distrusts the government, which should be everyone, and everyone, I don't know who that excludes, but that includes quite a few, everyone. But if you're one of those that trust the government, Lord help you. Yeah.
right thing with it. That's what journalists are supposed to.
Yeah, okay, this is.
These are
Intervention and nation building.
For a vaccination card. Well, Alberta just grant.
That's what journalists are supposed to do in holding people who are in power accountable. So, if that is the case, under this very loose, very vague definition, would I be considered a terrorist by the Department of Homeland Security? And if the answer to that question is yes, the next question to what you just asked, and what does that mean? What is the consequence of that? That is a terrifying idea.
And it's not outlined in this bulletin, so it's very vague without a punishment saying this is what the consequence is going to be. And you look at those that are being held of January 6th, still in trial, what, a year, 2 years later, year later, and they have not actually been formally charged yet. Yep. Anything, you give them a little inch, they take. This is why people question, have doubts in the government. But here's the bigger question on this. How does this not conflict with the First Amendment? You're right, Ben, your job as a journalist is to ask questions. That is the right, not only as a journalist, but as every citizen of the United States. That was given to us. We have the freedom of speech. How is this actually not in conflict with it?
Well, it's absolutely in conflict with it. It is in conflict with the right to speak. Whether you're a journalist or not, you have the right to speak. The right to freedom of religion means the right to your belief system. It's not just church religion. It's whatever you believe. You have a right in this country, a fundamental, constitutionally protected right to believe what you believe. Government does not have the right to punish you for your beliefs. And one thing that
Go ahead, Randy. I'm just not going to put you on camera this time. I learned my lesson. Tell them about the Constitution.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with this guy.
But you know the Constitution didn't give him those rights. We're born with those rights from God.
No, the Constitution just recognizes those rights.
There you go. Yeah.
And like there's a quote of Franklin, you know, if you're as long as you're able to keep them, you know, but we can't. They're being taken away.
They're
it's
gone.
like, you know,
no, they're gone.
Right, but it was recognized easy, you know, or I mean, early on, the flaw in the system is with the people.
You know, if I was back there, I would have threatened them with a karate chop. I said, let's stop all this nonsense and help the people. And all those Freemasons would have snapped right in line, I'll bet.
Pull a Three Stooges Curly.
Give them a poke in the eye.
You see, they keep threatening that those who are creating these beliefs or this speech might lead to someone believing something that might lead to violence. Well, if that is the case, and there is violence, then you charge the violence. You don't charge this idea that you have a belief in your head and therefore you must be punished for that. It's utterly draconian on every level. And the truth is this, I'm glad you're talking about it today, because
ideas have consequences.
We have to rein in these
this was only last night, the 9 o'clock news.
That are running amok right now and following the law.
Yeah, it's current.
Find it right onto these things, because unfortunately, once they actually put it into practice, it's too late. We need to let the American people know, and let the world know exactly what is going on right now involving freedom of speech and the ability to question the government. Ben, thanks for staying with us.
Yeah, all these people, they're all, you know, they're all behind the medicine of the day. So they're not the good, there's no good guys anymore.
Well, and they made it easier, you know, in the early 1900s, you know, and that was Franklin's, you know, it's currently a republic as long as you're able to keep it. But when they changed how the legislators are elected to be the representatives in Washington, where it was the state legislatures voted on their representatives, and it was changed where just the vote of the people accomplished it. That's where we lost our real representation.
Yeah.
I think. You know,
and coming out of a reset, all of the, I don't think that the regular people ever had a chance.
Well, no, because they've been dumbed down to the point where.
No, I mean back then. I think coming out, when we think back to our time of the revolution, what they say is 1776, and if I'm anywhere near right, is 1711. A lot of people are putting resets at different times. But that's a complete reset, starting from a reaping of where there was going to be the last remnant. That's us. The last 290 years, then 9/11, and then 45. It was a reset. They were faking all of that stuff. There were probably normal people, but then there were the Freemasons who came out with their marching orders in their hand, starting all over with a new type of seigneur fiefdom signature, where it was just the royalties. It wasn't that all of the people were equals in it together, just working to get by.
It didn't take 100 years to go from allegedly an independent sovereign nation to a corporation. That didn't take 100 years.
Yeah, but even still, that couldn't happen to normal people unless they were herded like sheep into it because of the dollar's crashing, this is crashing, we're going west. There was a big communist revolution in 1848. That's where we got half of our immigrants. And they were sent over here, from dispossessed Roman Catholic. It basically was a takeover. The same thing that let's face it. Let's talk real. I am not someone that is into the politics, but the Republicans right now, they would say there is a slow occupation taking place over the border by Mexicans, and other people are coming into here, the United States, and building armies. And I'm saying that's what happened in 1848. There was a planned uprising in Europe, and then all of a sudden, here came white Europe, and every town had a St. Vincent de Paul Church and a St. Mary of Compassion Hospital. They were everywhere in every town because they all thought we could do better over there. And we said, yeah, you can. It's been one reset like every 120 years. And whatever had happened in 1964, 1963, with that election and that false flag assassination and just putting out a blatant lie that it was a lone assassination, it's all tying together that we can't believe anything. These pedophilia shows that are coming out of Texas now and growing and spreading out, where people are taking matters into their own hands, they're everywhere. And I don't want to put a percentage on it, but if I did, I'd have to say 20% of them got Bibles on their front seat. They work in churches. It's crazy right now. We can't trust anybody unless they can say, live your life in public and give me your phone, and be happy without, oh no, I need a private text. Those days have to be over for the narrow road.
Yeah, well, anything, transmitted wirelessly is definitely recorded, and for what it's worth, and even the private stuff is probably also intercepted. So
my dad told me about the prison or the prison computer system that was tracking everything in the 70s, and nobody cared. There was
people still don't care.
Oh, yeah, whatever, if you don't have anything to hide, there's that crowd. But we also have now a situation where they've pumped up the sexuality and given everybody the rope to hang themselves. That's what I think.
Because it's so effective, for their cause. And
I have never.
But not everyone recognizes, what
I've
things
never
are.
Seen a more of an example of these people on those pedophilia shows that are practicing sin.
Yeah, it's all about intent.
They're texting children that are underage.
Right, yeah.
and they're doing it full time. They're doing it, you know. And here's what we know in John, 1 John chapter 3, verse 1. For us, we, you know, that have never had that inclination to even one time text an underage girl, it's because we have no reason to boast. God has made us like that. He's purified us. Those people that practice sin do it to prove they're of the devil. Now, here's the difference. You can read about us and them in 1 John chapter 3, verse 1. But see what kind of love the Father has given to us, that we should be called the children of God. And so we are. The reasons why the world does not know us is that it did not know him. Beloved, we are God's children now, and what we will be has not yet appeared. But we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, because we shall see him as he is. And everyone who thus hopes in him purifies himself as he is pure. Everyone who makes a practice of sinning also practices lawlessness. Sin is lawlessness. You know that he appeared in order to take away sins, and in him there is no sin. No one who abides in him keeps on sinning. No one who keeps on sinning has either seen him or known him. Little children, let no one deceive you. Whoever practices righteousness is righteous as he is righteous. Whoever makes a practice of sinning is of the devil, for the devil has been sinning from the beginning. The reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the works of the devil. No one born of God makes a practice of sinning, for God's seed abides in him, and he cannot keep on sinning because he has been born of God. Not Brandon Flowers from the rock and roll band. They're from Las Vegas. They did that song about, let me think of it. Brandon Flowers, he's from Las Vegas. He has a band. They have that song, I got soul, but the Killers. I got soul, but I'm not a soldier. I'm a Mormon. My father was a husband. Brandon Flowers, lead singer of the Killers, wants to be a positive force in the world.
And so he is.
Yeah, he's Mr. Peace.
Provocative.
Peace, peace when there is no peace.
Yeah, and what's his true intent?
I don't know, man. It must be a different. Not Brandon. There he is.
Wait, what's this? Yes, that's right. It is a Gordon Flowers sweatshirt that you can now buy in the pinned comment. If you want to get this awesome Gordon.
Will you believe me then? Okay, so I guess that's when you wrote Melanie's name. So, what was? Oh, okay. So that was to prove that it was actually you said in the text. Okay. Okay.
So these guys are crazy, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I followed that last little clip close enough to.
Well, I'm going to find one that's better.
Because whatever was on his sweat, I don't really know what that was promoting. I'm not familiar with, or I didn't recognize what he's blabbing about. Is that a May basket? Ah, maybe not. This is like candid camera?
Yep.
We can share. We're going to talk if you like, okay, where we can see each other. So let's do it. Okay. I recommend you tell her that we're friends and everything's okay. Because listen, whatever she does, and if she wants to record us, yeah, okay, all right. Sure, if you want to go through it, as long as Len's not sure. Okay.
Why don't this way, Sam?
Oh, right here? Over
Yeah, under there. We're gonna go under there.
I'm saving kids and I'm saving. I'm a hero. Well, just have a seat, okay? I can't really tell her. Oh, does it look like it was? No. Okay. When you're done talking, you can check out the price. I was wrong for going under. All right. I've got messages here too.
I like his t-shirt.
There's quite a few girls you were talking to. And do you want to? How about you explain everything that I think I know, that you think I know? When I missed something. Sure. Gordon, right? I'm Gordon. Nice to meet you. It started like this. It's okay. And I was wrong for talking to all these girls. I'm not underage. So they were on the dance right there, our age. Mm-hmm. And we were talking, and one thing led to another. Mm-hmm. And it got out of hand. So. Well, how did it get out of hand? With everything. I think it was in hand the whole time before we're talking about your on the phone. I was wrong for that. Okay. And some of the things that they said to me too. Oh no, and you know that's why I'm coming from. I'm not coming at you hostile because I'm yeah, exactly.
So they're sitting on a bench outdoors, snow on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, he appears comfortable enough.
He has a group that they have people posing and trapping these people, you know, and then they go and confront them, and they're pedophiles, and they just have the most outrageous excuses.
So the older guy is a pedophile?
He sure is.
Okay, okay, that's right. No, I'm following. And then he has some sort of documentation.
He has a ton.
Right.
Like this little, I made a mistake. I made a mistake thing. That's what they always say. And these guys, a lot of them, too many of them are church people.
Yeah. They don't regret their mistake. They just regret getting caught.
They've been caught many times.
Or caught again, I should say. Yeah.
I security, and then I work for a chemist on part-time. So you actually do security, not for the president? No. Okay. So that was just a lot, yeah. Okay.
I just want you and I to be on the same page.
Listen.
I can't lose a place to live,
So-
and she's been really good to me.
Right, I know, and right now the page we're on is page 1, and we have many pages to get through.
That's
So,
at her moment, like,
I know, that's true.
she,
Yeah,
I don't know if it's for you.
yes, I know. So, anyway, I get it, dude, okay? And I come from the camp that there has to be 2 to tango, okay? So I don't place the blame on
No,
one.
I was wrong because of my age and the girl.
Well, sure. And I'm not saying you weren't wrong, I'm not saying they weren't wrong, okay?
2 wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly. So, let's get through these messages here and okay. So, before we get into these messages, I do want to ask, Rich Pocket. I do want to ask, when did the attraction to underage kids start for you?
About a year ago.
A year ago.
Because I was at my cousin's party, and a 16-year-old girl.
Okay.
She looked older. I didn't touch her or anything, and I never touched any underage kids before.
Sure.
I swear to God, she's on my parents' grave and my 3 daughters. My oldest one, actually, that I mentioned, she lives in Austin, Texas.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm from San Antonio, so beautiful. I'm pretty close. I love it there.
Except before you go finish, all right, you want to finish, and then you can tell me what you're going to tell. Because I can get thrown out. It's cold out.
Frank, you know how I told her baby steps?
Yeah.
There's baby steps here too. I don't mean to turn you on when I say baby steps.
No,
I know, dude, but like, okay, I'm
I
just
just
saying.
don't want to lose my job, a place to live, and a girlfriend that loves me.
I know your mind is scrambling right now, dude. I know you have 3 people in your face.
No, yeah, I'm fine, because I used to be an auxiliary cop in the city of Newburgh. I know my rights, I know the law,
Right.
and I would never, ever meet up with these girls. I told them I would, so.
Sure. So I get it. So don't worry about.
Ashley, the girl that you know, she said to me, she kept pushing these 2 girls onto me. They want to talk to you. I mean, you know.
Right. So don't worry about her right now. We're just gonna worry about.
I have to, because this is my place to live.
I know.
You go to hell and I go upstairs.
That I don't know yet, man, because I'm not planning that far ahead, dude. Right now I'm planning.
That is going down in Florida.
I know. Okay. So your attraction started a year ago, you said.
Yeah.
So how did it get down to 13-year-olds?
It didn't. It just happened. You know, it just happened.
Okay.
That she told me she was 13 after we talked a couple.
So this is when it started, because.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can kind of get an idea, you know, and these kind of, you know, it's hard for me to sit through these a lot.
It's going great. But you know, but every man wants to be called daddy, no matter.
You're fishing for excuses.
Exactly.
They always want to be called daddy, no matter what. So.
It just happened.
What are the other 13-year-olds send you?
Same.
Like basically like topless.
No.
Just
with
bra.
clothes on.
Bra?
No.
Oh, okay, just other pics. Okay.
The only one that sent me a picture was Trinity.
It just happened like destiny, right?
I guess, yeah.
All right.
Of course, you're going to eat it. Potentially, maybe sidebar. Because again, that's right.
It's no. Okay.
Okay.
I'm telling you the truth.
Okay. So the kiss is okay. Well, let's Listen. You were. That's recorded. Everything's recorded.
What does that mean? Yeah, he wants to know.
Her uncle and took advantage of
And he
her.
wanted the details of it, and it's recorded on the
She
phone.
told me the details, and she still goes and sees this guy.
And he was getting off to it on the phone. We have everything recorded now. I think what you gotta do is kick this out of the house. Seriously.
He's gonna give me a hard time. Oh, he's gonna give me a hard time.
Besides being cash, we're also a moving service, so if you need us to move them out, we absolutely.
I would appreciate that.
Okay, well, just, we charge $100 an hour. Just kidding. But.
I don't care, okay? Only take it out. Everything here is mine.
Okay, cash out, not super chat, please. I don't want Frank taking 30%. But,
No, I wouldn't do that to you,
No, the only thing you take is virginity, it's not 30%. But,
Anyway, I think you'd absolutely need to know about what he's been doing. And he said there was another he said he'd been with her for 9 years. 9 years. Well, speaking of a 9, he was talking to a girl that moved to Germany, and 13 years old. He said he's well, and there's a 15-year-old that she talked to that are independent from these three right here. So, yeah, I think it for sure. And
guess who?
The police?
Shouldn't have been on.
okay.
Well, I was wrong. I was wrong.
Where are you guys from?
I'm from Houston, Texas. He's from Houston too.
You guys know these girls, or were there ever actual?
Assumed. Okay.
Really? So they never met an officer? You go all over?
Yes.
Officer, they never met
a 15 and 13-year-old were real, like that he mentioned. That he said.
Come in.
But I think there's more we can do with this. But this, yes, is what we do now.
Thank you. That's a beautiful thing. Appreciate that. You saved my life. I can't have this in my house, man. I can't have this in my house.
I agree.
Maybe now I got 3 years to sue. Maybe I should tell these police officers the way you stole $6,500 off my card. And the credit union in Highland wanted me to put them in jail. So this has been within the year.
Keep those.
I will keep these. These are my evidence.
Okay, sounds good.
And again, I thank you guys, whatever, get them off the streets.
I really like Alex, by the way.
I am.
This whole world just makes me sick.
This is Frere right here.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, sometimes the less you know may allow you to feel better, but ignorance really isn't an excuse
Yeah.
either.
I mean, that's practicing sin, man. That's just like every one of us in this United States knows they're pushing sex. All of us have been damaged by the availability of pornography. Very few, I thought, went down that road of sexual addiction. I mean, I remember I was a grown man when John Wayne Gacy, the other people, who was it? The guy that killed Bundy, Ted Bundy, and they were addicted to porn, and it seems like we pushed back for a little bit, then it just, there was never. They never paused. It's just been full blown.
Yeah, this isn't anything new, but the intensity probably feels as though it has increased.
Right.
It has to, but this is nothing new.
That's why I really think that whether it's a Owen Benjamin type Beartopia or anything like that, in my dream world, there's a time coming when we should have all things in common, especially our love for the Lord and our waiting and trying to serve him. And if any of us have electrical devices there that don't work on wireless, or in the meantime, as we wait, there should never be a time where anything that I would own could be considered private. And anybody from what did you study today? Well, let's just go over my whole history. And as long as I'm in front of the computer, there's time accounted for. That is personal accountability that is lived before the world. That, because I just don't want them looking into my stuff. I do. And there's coming a time when I think people should say, this is how you make 7,000 shows. about certain topics. This is how you fill up notebook after notebook. The way they fill up text after text or pokes to underage girls for something that is a pipe dream that's never going to be what satisfies them in the long run. It's just not. We're, you know, I don't know how it ended up there, but that's the world I'm living in right now. And I think that,
well, yeah, when you're witnessing those who are addicted to their own damnation, yeah, it's disheartening.
It is.
And then I guess, you know, the next level is either being or knowing a victim, you know, that has went through their clutches, I guess.
And
maybe
it just
you know,
seems
one way.
like what hurts the most is that there's so many victims out there now, so many more
Well,
than we can imagine.
and that's the norm. That's the new norm. You know, that's what everything's flipped. You know, evil's good, good is evil. Yeah,
You know what? The majority of these, you know, and I've only seen about 7 or 8 of them. But when I've watched them with Tommy, because he's thinking about starting one of these groups or doing something, the main thing that the excuse that they always go back onto first is, oh no, I'm not like that. I was going to help them. I was going to, you know, yeah, I told them those things, but when I got there, I was going to be like, now you should listen to me and not do this. It's just like they think that's going to work. But that's what they go to right off the bat.
Well, yeah, and that's their plan B if they get caught, you know.
Right. And, you know, then with that, you know, back to that news segment on about the domestic, you know, Patriot Act. You know, that's why I was beating around the bush earlier. What type of, you know, what do we call it? I want to call it a plague because, you know, in our world right now, we can't tell the truth about a lot of topics.
Yeah, not without being reprimanded for it. And it sounds like that's even going to escalate or intensify what they're able to do with someone who isn't cooperating.
I have to get a bottle of water real quick.
Yeah, I don't really need total dead air, but I don't know what to add.
I was just getting dry, and the thing is, it's, you know, man, is that they couldn't get any worse, you know?
Oh, it will get worse. I'm fairly confident about that.
We've seen those things, and it leads me to believe everything I've been teaching about, you know, whether it's right at World War I or leading up to it with Remember the Maine, all the way through World War II, that's still that same system working towards, it's like we're having a new genocide every 2 years. And the same wars and battle lines, and right now it's Russia and China. When we were younger, Randy, did you ever think that China would win? I mean, right now they've won. They did it.
Well, yeah, with the help of, you know, self-destruction,
all kinds
of dumbing down. The Bible isn't relevant. Yeah, they have their techniques that have, you know, proven to be very successful for those that are, yeah, evil intent.
China wins right now in the world because I don't believe that there are nuclear weapons that could destroy everybody at one time. We're waiting for Gog and Magog while China is in charge. The United States is no longer even a power in the world.
Yeah,
We're
and whose fault is this? You know?
And what difference does it make whose fault it is?
Well, yeah, everyone needs to share some blame, you know, in that equation.
I don't think it's
certainly.
your fault. I don't think you have, you were millstone and the Lord opened your eyes. I was millstone and the Lord opened our eyes. Otherwise, we would be marching right along with the go along, get along crowd. I was a happy Christian and we didn't get vaccines, but we didn't speak out about it. You know, it wore people out even in the 80s and 90s. They just didn't want to hear about
it. And still don't.
So I'm not going to be the one that, I don't want to, and it comes down to, I don't want to stop preaching because I've already lost this channel 7 or 8 times. And then I had 9,500 subscribers taken down. And if people in the chat room are encouraging me to, it seems like get the fuck banned, Alan, or you're not a man.
And what does that prove? Yeah. No. Yeah. To speak the truth, but having to filter, what you really can say or say it in the code way,
right,
is a challenge. But
and why in the world, and just 2 days ago, I thought maybe I should start trying to back up on a Parler. And then I saw Melania Trump just signed a big deal to start, for money to start podcasting on Parler. Whatever made anybody, what credentials does she have? Or who are they marketing to? It sounds like the remnants of Q. Stop me before I rhyme again. But Melania Trump, I mean, she's a titty girl, right? And she's just got famous for flashing
but
her
also popular enough for the obvious reasons, marketable.
Right. Well, right now I feel like just talking on the phone to you, and I have those tabs and stuff, and there's a few loyal people around, 8, but we're not, so it's too salacious. It might be too in your face. It might be too doom and gloom. But Randy, anybody preaching peace, that we're going to make it, we're going to rebuild this wrecked ship and not warning of a pestilence to come, I doubt their salvation or their qualification as teachers.
Or just their inability to recognize the times,
Yeah, to grasp the reality of this situation. We are a remnant on a narrow road who've won because we're separating. We're not going to talk them into all of a sudden, I renounce my evil ways. I wish I never would have fill in the blank and the government changes.
Yeah, to recognize and then have to withdraw from what not that long ago was normal life activities, and now to be the lone odd duck black swan thing that
Should we go back and finish that Michelle Gibson thing, or should we finish looking at this Freedom Convoy thing?
Well, I mean, you got through there couldn't have been much left of that what Michelle mirrored.
Oh yeah, okay. I had written down earlier.
The convoy thing. Now that's something that's current, and you seen the cartoons where they were shooting all the geese because they were honking and up there in Canada. But
I saw that they found a mink in that had the disease, this plague that's going around. So they killed every mink that they were raising for coats.
And yeah, that probably represents some sort of dollar figure, I imagine.
I only took one note when we were doing our talking and stuff like that as a rabbit trail. So, and it was the British Expeditionary Force of World War I. What did they do?
So this was pre-war, or?
Nope, it was, well, it says it began in 1906, so it was pre-war. But it must have been important because, like I said...
Nice hat.
Thanks, but I'm not wearing a hat. As I said, when we were watching all of those other things, I really only took one note, and it was pretty messed up. And I wanted to look this up. So, you know me, I think that's being led by God. What is it? It was mentioned.
Follow that rabbit?
Well, it was 6 divisions of the British Army sent to the Western Front. Was one of the main theaters in the war, Luxembourg and Belgium, during the First World War, planning a British expeditionary force. Part of the antecedent of the modern concept of blitzkrieg, modern rapid deployment forces. So they were planning that force as early as 1906 and 1912 with the Haldane reforms. He's wearing a top hat, more than likely made of seal, that was made by slaves taken by the Russian-American company, captured slaves from the Isle of St. George and St. Paul, where they lived as slaves, and they received reparations along with the Japanese in World War II. It's the only reason I know about them. But during that time period, that's where that hat came from. They had Haldane reforms, series of far-ranging reforms for the British Army, getting ready for the last push of reset. And it was carried out by Secretary of State Richard Haldane following the Second Boer War. Boer is a South African word that means farmer. So this was the Second Farmer War. It was a conflict fought between the British Empire and white people that had settled in South Africa peacefully with the black people. But they discovered diamonds and golds, and history's been rewritten now. But it was what else was invented there, Randy? Trick question.
In 1906?
Yes. For the Boer War. No, 1901 and 1902, I think. The English introduced the world to what they called the concentration camp for refugees. Okay. Concentration camp for refugees. But
it's more of a like consolidation camp.
That's what it was. Yeah, but a lot of them got that typhoid and died. They were dying by the thousands of disease. There's nothing the English could have done. So somewhere they got the old contemptibles in there. You know, that's like the old, what were those, we're the deplorables. Oh, wah, 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 wah. So they formed, here they are. Hey guys, what's up? Nice uniforms. Who paid for them? Not you.
So the health conditions were just a coincidence due to the living conditions.
That's what's going to happen.
Well, someone got in there and dug some trenches.
Yeah, they did. Down you go. Portuguese.
Have a nice day. Some medallions.
Right.
Go earn a medallion.
But even this one isn't really the one I was looking for.
So it was a successful expedition, or
if you want to get the most people killed.
Okay.
Okay, so they're not going to focus on it. So what we're going to have to do is go back and look up who is that guy in Lawrence. There, that's the one I wanted to know.
Not of Olivier.
Where is Mount Sinai? So what they say. Has never been identified archaeologically.
I thought there was that one that was all scorched on top, but that doesn't necessarily mean, I guess, anything.
Right. Now this guy here, he helped betray and set up, Palestine being betrayed by faux Israel to this day. It was this bisexual. British archaeologist, army officer, and diplomat, and writer who became renowned for his role in the Arab Revolt of 1916-1918 and the Sinai and Palestine Campaign 1915-1918 against what they were going to call, they were going to change their religion into something they called Muslimism. Because that's how come you never heard about suicide bombers before our lifetime. That all happened during First World War. And of course, when you prop him up, you pick somebody out of history and you prop him up. If he's bisexual, all the better. So in 1962, the world got their version of the story. The reality was quite different. 7 baronet.
So he's like a double agent that can go under the covers. Yeah.
Hey now, what's up? Got in on the Air Force, the Mint, the Arab Revolt. They talked him into, we promise you this land if you revolt with us. And then guess what they said? Just kidding.
Fooled you.
There he is. Lawrence's biographers have discussed his sexuality at considerable length, and this discussion has spilled into the popular press. There's no reliable evidence for consensual sexual intimacy between Lawrence and any person. Wow. Okay.
There you have it. No evidence.
Not just men, no women either, I guess.
Fine.
Okay. He knows nothing.
I believe it.
What I really wanted to do, they put his effigy in St. Martin's Church. He lived from 1888, your favorite year, to 1935.
Okay.
Or was it 1,000 years ago?
So he didn't live, or what? He died from what, natural causes? Not that young. What, 47? But whatever.
Let's find out. Let's get more specifically on his death here. What did he die of? After his death, he inherited Lawrence's estates. Paid off the debt. I don't know what he died from.
But that's fairly young.
Yeah, it is.
Even for that period of time.
Yeah, it would have been 53.
He was 53?
Yeah, well, that's what 88 to 35 is.
Well, 12 and 35.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. 47.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Or that's the arithmetic I was using.
Where do you go? Where'd you go to school? Oh, yeah. No, my mind is all over the place because in reality, what I really wanted to show was the cars, what they invaded with, because this guy was driving V12 Rolls Royces that were petroleum powered, and that was the fuel of the future. And they raided across hundreds of miles of desert with them. That's what I was kind of looking at.
But even that would require some logistics or just a huge fuel tank, something.
Yeah, I know. I was blown away, and I haven't studied them for a long time. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I know what an Army officer are. A bunch of ring knocking big talkers, brainwashed. They're like cops. If you haven't quit the Army now or the police force, you're on my radar as suspicious.
Yeah. That looks like quite the ride.
There it is. That's what I wanted to show you. I was hoping that they could see what they wanted out of their expeditionary force vehicles.
Oh, so there's a turret.
1924.
Yeah.
Rolls Royce. You know what? You buy a Rolls Royce, if it breaks down, they don't care where it is, they'll come fix it.
That's some serious AAA.
No doubt, man. You're going to win that fight most of the time. It developed in 1914. That's what won the Middle East.
So what were the emissions on something like that? Doesn't matter. They won.
This had 6-cylinder engine, but that's just for one model, I'm sure, because I've seen that they had 12 cylinders.
Yeah, that was probably the lower end one that you're quoting from.
Right.
Here.
But 150 miles per, then they have to stop and refuel. This one only had the Vickers machine gun.
So what calibers?
You know, I'm not sure. Oh, 303.
Okay.
So it's just a little bit smaller than your 30-06. The United States, the common one now would be 7.62 millimeters.
All right. Yeah.
And your 22 is your 5.56. That's right, everybody. Your M16 machine gun is a 22, high-powered 22.
Yeah.
So 76 vehicles is all it really took, and I believe there could be 76 trombones. I'm just kidding, but maybe. By the end of 1941, they were withdrawn from the frontline services as the more modern ones came in there. Zikesity doodah.
Yeah, the trombones probably would have had more resonance, but hard to say.
And even that, you know, the Music Man is a decode. It's how we learned what it was like in the past.
Yeah, one way to learn, maybe.
Well, because if they were rewriting history,
yeah, they would need some sort of entertainment that would automatically,
and somehow it's kind of like, well, this is what they did. It's just like giving them the books by Mark Twain.
Right. Yeah. Another way of pre-programming or.
A Music Man sneak peek. You know, it doesn't take anything for content providers to mark that all their videos are Creative Commons and that anybody can use them without worrying, you know, about
a strike.
A strike. But no. But no. They don't. They just too lazy.
Well, did I meet you?
No.
Well, you see, I'll only be in town for a short while.
Good.
It has the best opening because it's all about what did they do back in the old day? They bought things on credit, cash. No, wait, cash for the merchandise.
All aboard.
Riverside Junction, Riverside, next station stop. You're crazy with the heat. Credit's no good for a notion salesman. All aboard. Why not? What's the matter with credit? It's old-fashioned. Charlie, you're an anvil salesman. Your firm give credit?
No, sir.
Nor anybody else. River City next. Cash for the merchandise. Cash for the button hooks. Cash for the cotton goods. Cash for the hard goods. Cash for the soft goods. Cash for the fancy goods. Cash for the noggins and the pickens and the firkins. Cash for the hogshead, cask and demi-john. Cash for the crackers and the pickles and the fly paper. What do you talk? 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 Where do you get it? What do you talk? You can talk, you can talk. You can bicker, you can talk. You can bicker, you can talk. You can talk, you can can talk, bicker, bicker, bicker. You can talk all you wanna, but it's different than it was.
No, it ain't, but you gotta know the territory.
Why it's the Model T Ford made the trouble, made the people wanna go, wanna get off, they go 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 22, 23 miles to the county seat. Yes, sir, yes, sir. Who's gonna patronize a little bitty 2x4 kind of store anymore? What you talk? How you get it?
Not the Model T at all. Take a gander at the store, at the modern store, at the present day store, at the present day modern departmentalized grocery store.
What do you talk? 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 What do you get? What do you talk? What do you talk? What do you talk? What do you get? You can talk, you can bicker, you can talk, you can bicker, you can talk, bicker, bicker, bicker. You can talk all you want, but it's different than it was.
No, it ain't, but you gotta know the truth.
Why is the you need a biscuit made the trouble? You need to put the crackers in a packet. The you need a biscuit in the airtight sanitary pack with the Cracker Barrel obsolete. Cracker Barrel, let's open the window with the mail pouch. Cut plug on by the stove. Change the approach of the travel. Salesman made it pretty hard.
No, it didn't, but you gotta know the territory.
Gone with the hogshead cast and semi done. Gone with the single barrel milk can. Gone with the tub and the pail and the tears.
Ever meet a fella by the name of Bill?
No!
Just a minute.
Never heard of any salesman.
Now he doesn't know the territory.
Doesn't know the territory? The fella's lying.
Never worries about his line.
Never worries about his line.
Nor the Cracker Barrel being obsolete. Nor the you need a biscuit in the airtight sanitary package or the Model T Ford. Just a minute. Never worries about his line.
Never worries about his line?
You're a doggone thing. He's just a thing. He's selling green, big, tall, great, going neck for nothing, rip and roar, and every time a bullseye salesman. That's Professor Harold Hill.
Now, what's lying?
He's a fake, and he doesn't know the territory.
When you talk.
He's a music man.
He's a what?
He's a music man, and he sells clarinets to the kids in the town. The big trombones and the rat-a-tat drums. Big brass sticks, and the piccolo with unicorn suit with the shiny gold ring on the coat and a big red stripe running down.
Well, I don't know much about bands, but I do know you can't make a living selling big trombones. No, sir. Mandolin picks, perhaps, and here and there a tune part.
No, the fella sells bands, boys bands. I don't know how he does it, but he lives like a king, and he dallies and he gathers, he puffs and he shines. And when the band dances, certain boys, what else? Like the bass him. Yes, sir.
When he plays, the piper pays him. The drawaway, the connection is, it's not only the con man Harold Hill selling the bands to every newly formed kit town in the United States about that time. They were also selling baseball uniforms, football uniforms, and promoting the Olympics so that they could get girls involved in pom-poms, cheers, the ice dancing, whatnot. Any comments, Randy? I know that was an unusual segue for me, but I would like to add, in 8th grade, they have 2 plays a year at Lake Zurich. My son played Professor Harold Hill, and in the spring production, he played the doctor who talks to the animals. So we were very, very happy that,
that was Dr. Doolittle?
Dr. Doolittle, right. And then when we said, why aren't you continuing your acting into high school, Austin? He goes, Dad, that teacher's there's no way. And I said, good on you. Okay. You maxed out in 8th grade, but good enough. I wouldn't have been good with that either, So do you think it's a rewrite of history? I mean, they covered, you got to get the credit. You got to, cash was the old way. And now a man's coming to town selling dreams to children, and the parents are going to be proud. And then it's going
Or is it just a matter of changing interests, doing things different, but it's a different way of life.
Yeah, right. and they needed something to do. They needed to be able to go. I think they're from River City, so I could already see them, because you could see that Iowa way. There was no smoking in town.
Well, yeah. How many children want to do what their parents do? Something's got to give. Something's going to change.
Our children, we're from River City, and we couldn't be prouder. And if you can't hear us, we'll yell louder. That's right around the corner, because if you have a marching band, you have to have a football team to march at halftime or something. Yeah. Otherwise, what good do you selling a marching band?
Yeah, there'd be no purpose. Yeah,
a local parade every now and then.
Right.
I'm digging this, man. I'm digging it big time. Check out Billy Whizbang.
Even though we may not ever mention it again.
Next thing you know, your son is playing for money in a Texas, and he's listening to something out of town Jackson here tell about horse race gambling. Not a wholesome truck race, no, but a race where they sit down right on the horse. Like to see some stuck-up jockey boy sitting on their patch, making much more than what I should say. Now,
yeah, his microphone's not set up right. But anyway, you got trouble. Because of pool.
Oh, we have trouble. Right here in River City with the capital T, that rhymes with P, that stands for pool. That's cool, they surely got trouble. Right here in River City, right here, trying to figure out a way to give the young ones more after school.
Oh, yeah. But people are easily to be manipulated. How do you deal with the bickering old wives in the books they don't like Balzac?
To investigate, I'm sure. And naturally, I'm reticent. Oh, yes, I am reticent.
Well, of course, Mrs. Shin, I completely understand. But you must know that part of my musical plans for the town include the ladies' auxiliary for the... Oh, Miss Shin! Wait! Do that again. Your foot. The way you raised it just now.
Oh, well, I have a bunion there that bothers me.
What grace! What natural flow of rhythm! What expression of line and movement!
No, Mr. Hill.
Oh, you must accept the chairmanship for the ladies' auxiliary for the classic dance, mustn't she, ladies?
Oh, yes!
Every move you make, Miss Shin, bespeaks Del Sar.
Oh.
Will you say yes?
Oh. Ukulele McKechnie Shin, oh, well, that is, dancing. Well,
then you accept.
Yes, Professor Hill, and I would like to say...
Thank you so much. Now, ladies, the young woman who plays the piano, a Miss Marion Carew, I believe.
Oh!
Well, after all, she is the librarian.
Pick a little, talk a little, pick a little, talk a little, cheep, 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 talk a lot, pick a little more, pick a little, talk a little, pick a little, talk a little, cheep, 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 talk a lot, pick a little more, pick a little, talk a little, pick a little, talk a
So you know the basic story behind this, Randy?
I know I've seen that at the fireside at Fort Atkinson, but
That the young boy from Gary, Indiana, that the professor teaches not to lisp when he sings, famously played by the young Ron Howard, director of Apollo 13 in the movie.
right.
That is not the librarian Marion's little brother. That's her son. You know that's what people. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, that's how come the guy left the library to the people, but all the books to her. So they couldn't kick her out of town because they're her books. But he doesn't know. But what does the Professor Harold Hill know? She's had her button pushed. She could fall in love again. And that's all really he wants with his money.
Well, yeah, and some interests really don't change that much.
Or to play the cornet. Fine. That'll be $7 import fee. First payment due opening of band practice. And of course, I'll need the boy's measurements for his uniform.
His uniform?
Why, certainly his uniform. And there won't be a penny due till delivery, which gives him 4 weeks to enjoy, anticipate, imagine, at no extra cost whatsoever. Never allow the demands of tomorrow to interfere with the simple joys and pleasures of today.
Would it have
A stripe? Why, certainly, my boy. A big, wide, red one running down each leg. Now, what do you think of that?
You'll have to excuse Winthrop, Professor. We can't
You
get
know,
him.
having sat through this a number of times with my son being in it, and then I've seen it at other times, he's going to go, sister. Yep, he you know, that was a big deal. He lisped.
They trademark today, even to us. And if you can get him to play in a band, you'll have St. Michael's own way with you. But if anyone can do it, I'll bet you can. Out of a crowd, I'll pick you for hat carrying, clay pipe smoking, shamrock wearing, Mavernine, Pitcher, Taurus Hall, Mitch, singing Irishman, Peter,
Now, is their address 1963 for a reason, or does Paco look for any reason to decode anything? Answers at 11.
Where are you from, everybody?
Gary, Indiana.
Oh, good you. Where did you say?
Gary, Indiana. In fact, Gary Conservatory was my alma mater.
Oh, I should know.
Well, middle class of our 5. How do you do this?
How do you do, Mr. Hill?
Well, Peru, of course. I thought the name sounded familiar. I've tried to see you since this afternoon, but
They want to put Winthrop in the blood. We're not interested, Mama. What's Marilyn? The boy might have his father's musical gift. He does have my jaw, you know.
Your husband and music. Oh, well, I'd love to talk.
You bursting on everyone's home like this, prying into personal affairs. We're not interested. Marion.
Well, that's 1 for and 1 against. Why don't we let the boy's father decide?
The boy's father is dead. Anything else?
Oh, well, I'm sorry. But that's all the more reason why your brother should have something like this to,
My brother is a 10-year-old problem child who can't understand why his father was taken away. Would you care to explain it to him? He's been brooding about it for 2 years. As to your musical tricks, why don't you go into business with some nice carnival man who sells gold-painted watches and glass diamond rings?
Musical tricks, doesn't it? Well, I think she likes the guy. What have you heard?
Nothing about you personally, just generally.
Well, what have you heard generally?
Just that.
She heard that he was a rake, but somehow love overcomes all. And even though he was going to rip off the whole town because she loved him, she let him go. You know, I don't know where that's going, but after 3 hours and 39 minutes and 33 seconds, I was just had to ask, Randy.
Typical scam gone awry. Is that how?
And I would think that the people in the play that they were portraying to be the bad guys, like, get me his credentials. Well, what a fool. You know, I really think that, you know, I want to tie it into the Bible. I'll probably leave some of these tabs open to go back over again later, but I really feel like we ought to wrap it up, Randy. So
Yeah, I got to get to the library. I need some more forms.
you didn't finish your taxes, right?
No, no, they're not finished. Correct.
Oh, man. Well, we left them with a lot, and the simple thing is with the kind of a bait click title is I'm not going to be, they can call it whatever they want. There's a plague, there's a pestilence, a judgment coming from God, and that's going to be it should be my message, and the stones will help, everything will help. But it is, if we can't figure out that they are not for us, they're against us, then it's
and we may be fortunate enough to witness it.
Yeah. Amen. Because blessed are those who make it.
Be a survivor.
It does. Do you want to add anything, or you close in prayer, and then I'll just wrap it up?
Yeah. Abba, Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this opportunity of giving Alan and myself to contemplate a number of different topics and hopefully bring your word into it in a meaningful way that is pleasing to you. We pray for any and all subscribers that may catch this now live or even later, that it is our hope that they also take something meaningful away from this process. All this we pray in the Messiah Emmanuel, everlasting Father's saving name, Christ Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thanks for sticking around, Randy. Everybody, it's a flat earth nation. Mud flood was Armageddon. We're never going to tell you anything else. Why would we? We're trying to prove we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho.